With the Butt Kicker Gamer 2, what you see and what you hear is what you feel. Butt Kicker. The future is feeling.
It's that time of week once more when we go Tuesday night GT3 racing, and we start with GT3 Fixed here in the Lone Star State. We're winding down into the final rounds of the 2022 Season 4 Championship, and it's heating up as we get ready to battle here at the Circuit of the Americas. Hello everyone, welcome back to RaceSpotTV, and welcome back to another installment of Precision Racing League Tuesday Night GT3. My name is Arjuna Kankipati, joined alongside by the voice of the Precision Racing League, Joey Tebbin. And Joey, this is a track that will frustrate some drivers, mostly those that are on the single monitors. However, given where we have been so far in the last couple of rounds, it is a nice change of pace to go to a track where passing opportunities might be aplenty.
Yeah, we've had kind of a tight and twisty run recently from Laguna Seca, which is almost a month ago now. I don't know where the time has gone. But then Stedderton, Barcelona, Oschersleben, 4 tracks in a row. We're passing. Kind of came at a premium. We still had some pretty solid races, but it was tough to pass. But now we go to COTA, a track that was designed for F1 cars, which means it's probably going to be pretty good for racing, because those cars are probably objectively the worst cars for racing just because of how they're designed. Now we put GT3 cars on a track that was designed on the back of a napkin by Kevin Schwantz. Tons of heavy braking zones, tons of hairpins. It's very well suited for GT3 cars.
We've got plenty of elevation change as well. We'll talk about the track in a little bit more detail in a handful of moments' time. Here's a look at the GT3 Fixed Series standings. It is a perfect 200 for Michael Terrafino right now. Scored 25 clear of Floyd Kerr. And Joe, you and I were talking moments before we went live. Despite the fact that Terrafino is almost now to the point where he is a full race victory clear of the driver in second place, the reality is not being able to drop the final round of the championship from this 10-round season does put a little bit more pressure heading into Rudskogen, the second of our new tracks this season.
And the key isn't only the final race of the season. Of course, you can't drop the final race, so you need to perform there and make sure you're within, contention of the championship. But also, both Terrafino and Floyd Kerr have essentially used their drop round already this season. Terrafino's came at Road Atlanta when he got taken out from second place. Floyd Kerr's came at Motegi the week before when his VR failed in the middle of the race. So both of them cannot really afford another terrible race. They both need to be 100% on their game, because one bad race from Terrafino, one win from Floyd Kerr, the gap is completely erased.
Absolutely. So that's an exciting look at that driver's standings. And of course, with Michael Terrafino of Team Beef leading there, it's good to see his team rather backing him up and building what is not an inconsiderable gap at the front of the team's championship, in front of the likes of We Race Esports, Vulture Motorsports North, and then SRT Esports Black, who have dropped backwards from third. Of course, plenty of excitement in this team championship, and when it comes to this one, being smart sometimes is as important, Joey, as being aggressive, because we know how crazy the start of these races can truly be, with 40 GT3 cars running up the hill into turn number 1.
Yeah, especially at this track, the start is going to be kind of dicey. We've kind of hyped it up in some other races this season. We have been to COTA this season in the F3 series earlier. Kind of hyped up. Maybe there'll be 4 or 5 wide coming into turn 1, but these PRL drivers are usually pretty well behaved. They do tend to go somewhat crazy on lap 1. You can see a little bit of 4 wideness, but I do trust them to make it through turn 1.
I hope so indeed. Let's take a quick look at the track map before we get down to the racing action itself. And fast and flowing through the opening sector, then the long back straightaway, of course, into a heavy braking zone into the final sector with that triple right-hander that is off camber and leads you into that penultimate corner where IndyCar showed that maybe alternative track limits are superior options through this 20-turn race course. But I think the variety here is going to be interesting, and you know, with Porsches being so strong over the course of this season, I would not be shocked if maybe we see a little bit of a shake-up here, given the setups and maybe the downforce configurations being run.
And that's going to be a big conversation topic in the Open Series coming up in the second half of our broadcast tonight. First up is the Fixed Series race, which is fixed setups, as is in the name. So it comes down to whatever you've been given by iRacing, whether it's on your Porsche or your BMW or your Audi or whatever the heck else is even in the field anymore. There's been a lot of cars erased with everybody moving to the strongest Porsche, but it really depends on what setup you've been given here in the Fixed Series.
We may have a handful of McLarens in this Fixed Series. I don't remember off the top of my head. We do at least, I think, have one in the Open Series. Before we get underway with the racing, though, let's take the time to thank those that make this possible, starting with VCO, the virtual competition organization. Whether it's blurring the lines between virtual and reality with the VCO Pro Sim Series, or challenging the best in sim racing across the best of the sim racing platforms in the VCO Esports Racing League, VCO looks to find innovative formats for the sim racing universe. Follow along on twitch.tv/VCO Esports. Owned and operated by passionate sim racers, Advanced Sim Racing designs and builds the sturdiest and most durable aluminium profile racing simulation cockpits available in the market today. All PRL members also get a 5% discount on ASR products using the Precision 5 coupon code. Racebox offers mid and high-end button boxes for sim racing enthusiasts, from the casual gamer up to the most meticulous sim racing driver. Competitively priced and carefully handcrafted, our button boxes are an enjoyable addition to any sim racing setup. Visit RaceSpotSimRacing.com and get 5% discount using the Precision 5 coupon code. RaceLab helps you to improve your driving skills. With modern overlays, race statistics, and native VR integration, you can get the best out of iRacing. Start using it now for free at racelab.app. ButtKicker products add incredible immersion and realism to every game. Feel every nuance and truly put yourself in the driver's seat. Ready to compete against the financial markets? Supporting over 60,000 users across the globe, NinjaTrader provides award-winning trading software and brokerage services. NinjaTrader is always free to use for advanced charting, backtesting, and trade simulation. Visit ninjatrader.com to get started with a risk-free trading simulator and start tracking your performance. Well, we always talk in the last handful of rounds about how qualifying is important because of how difficult passing is going to be. Qualifying might just be important here, Joey, to keep yourself in relative safety on that climb up into turn number 1.
And we always ask, how do you stay out of trouble on lap 1? How do you stay out of all the calamity? Well, an easy answer is always stay ahead of the calamity. Let the calamity happen behind you, lead into turn 1, don't open the door, and just try and hang on for the rest of the lap. That's definitely going to be critical, and it looks like, not as usual, it's not Michael Terrafino at the top of the timesheets right now. He's still got 4 minutes to figure things out, but Sully Sada's up top right now. That's new.
Yeah, that is new indeed. I love the way that you said that as well. He might have, might be a little bit unhappy, Joey, with your shock at his qualifying performance. It is Floyd.
It's not a shock, but it's just, it's fact. It's a fact of life. I'm sure Sully's surprised too.
He is up there in first. He's been running inside of the top 10 over the course of the season. Had some incidents as well. Greg Doucette in the Throttle Thursday number 85 jumps his way up inside of the top 10 as Saad will jump onto the brakes at the very end of the long back straightaway, dive his way into this final complex of the track. And with Porsches being so dominant in the run-up to these last few rounds, maybe I'm not totally shocked to see them sweeping the podium provisionally as Gary Brown will climb his way up to second. Michael Terrafino still has lap times to set. The question will be, how fast will they be? Rasmussen, 7 thousandths off the pace of Sully Saad.
Welcome back, Andrew Rasmussen, as well. He's been kind of off a little bit. We expected big things from him in the first race of the season when he was fighting with Floyd Kerr for that win in the first race at Road America. He's had a few more flashes over the course of the season. Barcelona was a good race for him, but on the front row provisionally, that's a great run for Andrew Rasmussen. Sully Saad doesn't improve. He's about 8 tenths down in that lap, but it doesn't matter. He's still got pole in the tank, and I think he's got one more lap to go.
I think he invalidated that lap potentially, but I don't think he has come down pit lane as opposed to what some of the other drivers have elected to do. So it's been an interesting change in how drivers approach this qualifying session. There is the Team Beef BMW of Michael Terrafino as he starts his lap in this BMW M4 GT3. We ride on board with him, riding all the way on the right side of the track on the entry into the S's, carrying as much speed as possible, bleeding off as gingerly as possible, and trying to roll the momentum through the corner. The top 4 drivers split by 0.05 of a second, 600ths technically. Michael Terrafino in 6th, Joey, is a 1/4 of a second behind.
That's kind of a surprise because this is a very, very long lap at COTA. We talk about how there are many corners. There's 20 corners. Only one of them is named, unfortunately. And somehow, that is all evened out in the top 6. Only 2.5 tenths between all these drivers. Some drivers who we don't normally see in the top 6 in qualifying, and also 3 different manufacturers. 4 Porsches, the Audi of Rasmussen, and the BMW of Terrafino. They've all found pretty much equal seat.
I don't know if Sully Saad intends to improve in qualifying or just noticing he has well and truly dropped off the pace. Maybe this is him just trying to cool those tires off heading into those final qualifying attempts. Looks as though 41 cars will be getting ready to go racing here today. It's going to be a lot of fun once again. And I think last time out we definitely had more drivers in the fixed setup series than we did in the sprint series later on. Will we see something similar here tonight? Both races last week, though, I think it's fair to say, were somewhat chaotic, Joey.
They were very chaotic, and that's because Aschersleben, while it was difficult to pass, there was very little runoff. There were so many little gravel traps and patches of grass that kept catching out drivers and flinging them off the road. You're not really going to have that problem at COTA. It is very much a modern F1 track. Every single corner has asphalt runoff, even through the S's. There's a couple of curbs that might throw you off, might spin you, might destroy the floor of the car, but they're not going to take you out.
There we go.
And there it is. He was just keeping us waiting.
It's 300ths. That puts Michael Terrafino back at the top now. Can Rasmussen find some speed? He's on his final qualifying attempt. Sully Saad, I think, is officially done in qualifying, for your information. So as Rasmussen makes a bit of a mistake down at the hairpin, I wonder if at the death Michael Terrafino has proved himself inevitable.
He's been on pole 4 times this season in the opening 3 races, and Rasmussen knows he's going to run out of time, so I think Terrafino has proved himself inevitable. He was just hanging back. You know, we got our hopes up. We thought we might get a new pole sitter, and no, Michael Terrafino, he had those 2 tenths in the tank the whole time.
Well, I guess it's now 5 pole positions in 8 rounds for Michael Terrafino. The championship leader came into this one 25 points clear of Floyd Kerr, and well, what can he do from the front of the field? It's time to go racing for the GT3 doubleheader. It's GT3 fixed up first here in the Lone Star State. Let's run you down through tonight's starting grid. It's a 205, 126, but the margins at the front of the field, so close. Sully Saad alongside Terrafino on the front row, 300ths off the pace. Rasmussen, 7 thousandths further back. Then 200ths further back is Gary Brown in the second of the Porsche 911s for Vulture Motorsports North. Floyd Kerr, 800ths off the pace of pole in 5th. Running second in the championship, has some work to do. Brandon Six will be alongside, completing the front 3 rows. Eric Kulaga, the first of the Lamborghini, sees Greg Doucette in the Throttle Thursdays BMW alongside Errol Orexoy. Kenny Duval bookend the top 10. Carl Strykars and Nick Silver 11th and 12th. Strykars losing a bit of momentum in the championship recently. Let's see what he can do to get some of that back. Kenny Rodriguez and Alex Wright in the SOT Esports Porsche and Lunatic Racing Lamborghinis. Row 7 is Martinez and Morales 15th and 16th, with Colantonio and Brown in some rather bright colored Porsche 911s on row 9, Angelo Velos and Dale Peterson, 19th and 20th. Velos all the way down the field. We've seen him have some speed over the course of the season, but 2 DNFs on 1 do not help his championship hopes. Regan Chandler, Jeff Carollo, 21st and 22nd, with Dave Peterson and Thomas Amos, 23rd and 24th. Karanjas File, 25th and 26th. With Scherf, Glover, Kulaga, and Dinsmore rounding out the top 30. As always, a stacked field, and we'll scroll through those final names. Not too many shocks in qualifying, though, at least from what I see, Joey.
Yeah, the biggest shocks are kind of some of the drivers who've found themselves back at the front of the field. Sully Sod and Andrew Rasmussen have been, as I mentioned, they've been, up there. They've been competing for spots in the top 10, but putting them second and third, that's going to be very interesting on the start, because that's 2 drivers who haven't really had a chance to win earlier this season, finally getting a very, very good shot at it into turn 1, and I wonder how aggressive are they going to be into turn 1? How aggressive is downtown Gary Brown going to be from 4th? And Floyd Kerr right behind him as well. He knows that championship gap is 25 points, and he needs to start bringing that gap down to Terrafino.
How aggressive would you go on the start here?
Well, I would think I'm going to try and be as aggressive as possible to set Terrafino off of his game, because we've seen in the past couple of weeks that when Terrafino takes the lead of a race after starting on pole, it's pretty much impossible to take him off of his game. So you gotta send it into turn 1, I think, and hope you don't make contact with him.
That I do actually very much agree with. As the field rolls themselves through, you can see it's relatively cool here, Joey, in terms of track conditions. In a state known for the sun bearing down on it, it's got plenty of cloud cover and track temperatures under 100 degrees Fahrenheit.
Yeah, we're not fooling you, even though it is April 1st in virtual standard time here. It is just 99 degrees Fahrenheit. I say just, that's still pretty warm, but there's some good cloud cover. There's a 9-degree wind. It should get even cooler over the course of this race.
Yeah, that's a good point. 3 p.m. Only drop off from here. Question will be, now do the clouds shift over the track? It is a big facility, of course, but we're ready to go for some Tuesday night GT3 racing. It is a 5th pole position in 8 rounds for Michael Terrafino, and the championship leader winds up the throttle, and before they even reach Barney, we're racing at the Circuit of the Americas. Single file for the top 2. Rasmussen sees behind him a challenge to the inside. Up the hill they go, but safely through. The first couple of cars will go. Now, will we get through drama free at the back of the field? Well, no, we won't. Looks like right in the Lunatic Racing Lamborghini goes around, but the rest of the field finds their way on through.
Poor old Alex Wright is parked in the middle of the track there. It looks
my word!
Oh dear, that's one of the Cloud Valve cars. I think that might have been
Kenny Duval.
Kenny Duval again.
My word, I was wondering if that first moment was all we were going to have. Cold tires still trying to get them up to temperature. We saw a look from a Ferrari there as they worked through the very outside of the S's. Bit of door banging there as Rasmussen, I think, may have got bumped by Floyd Kerr. Now, is there damage on that Audi as they break into the hairpin?
Doesn't look like there should be too much. It was light contact, but Rasmussen is struggling here on lap 1. He sent it a little bit too hard into turn 1, lost a little bit of ground, and now Floyd Kerr has been able to take advantage of him through the S's, and it looks like Brandon 6 is also on the attack. He might have a chance to dive it into the end of the back straight, but Gary Brown as well, a driver who's always aggressive. He's going to get to the inside of Sully Sod under braking here. That's going to be a pretty straightforward move. It's going to switch back in the stadium section, but Gary Brown did get to the inside there.
Single file for the rest of the field. Now, can Sully Sod fight this back? Does he want to fight it back? The more they fight, the more opportunity for Terrafino to break away. 1.3 the advantage, and now Floyd Kerr goes around, Brown around as well, and will this be a track blocker? Implications in the championship, of course, but my word, what an opening lap here at the Circuit of the Americas.
That looked pretty clumsy from Floyd Kerr, at least from my perspective. It looked like he just sent it in there on Mr. I already forgot his name. Gary Brown. Jesus, too many Browns in this field. I was trying to figure out if it was Gary or Roy. But yeah, it was Gary Brown. Floyd Kerr just sends it in there and spins them both around, unfortunately. And it looked like Greg Doucette was also just an innocent bystander there.
Well, Sully Sod is not going to let Michael Terrafino break away at the front without some sort of a fight. Rasmussen 2.2 back from your race leader, but up into turn 1, it is the BMW that leads at the front of the field. Left side, be able to see the movers and shakers on that opening lap. Floyd Kerr, despite what happened there, is only down 1 position, albeit with a almighty train behind him. Eric Kulaga running in 7th, Nick Silver in 8th, Rodriguez Martinez making up the rest of the top 10.
And you can see the effects of staying out of trouble on lap 1. All of those lovely little green numbers on the Christmas tree on the side of our screen. Cole Antonio stayed out of trouble. Kenny Rodriguez is running in the top 10. Veloz, Dale Peterson, all those drivers who started a little bit deeper in the field, they avoided all the chaos, and they're already reaping the rewards of that and stepping their way forward just a little bit.
Great view from the tower here at the Circuit of the Americas, and you just get a sense of the undulation as they work down the hill into turn 11. Right, interestingly angled corner. You've got to be careful how early you get on the power. Note the damage to the right front of the hardpoint by Delta Sports. Number 68, Floyd Kerr will be now having to contend with that until he gets into pit lane to assess the damage. Remember, 35-minute race, but with a limited fuel capacity, we do expect pit stops over the course of this one. It's estimated to go for about 17 laps or so, and traditionally we see the drivers pit anywhere as early as 15-20 minutes into the course of this race. Of course, in terms of this track being big, the one thing that it guarantees for basically everybody, Joey, is that you'll get some clean air no matter when you pit, I would assume.
You will be able to find some amount of clean track, but the difficulty with the way lap 1 has gone, we've got a little bit of field spread already going here with some of those drivers who spun and ended up at the back of the field. As we say every week, all of you loyal PRL GT3 fans know this. You've probably learned the strategy by now that if you come in too early, you're essentially going to end up in traffic at the back of the field. If you're like Michael Terrafino, the pit lane at COTA is not very long. You can very easily end up in traffic at the back of the field and lose any advantage you might get otherwise by coming in early. So it's always the strategy, seemingly, to stay out for as long as possible, wait until the hard end of the fuel tank before you literally can't go any further, because there's no real reason to come in any earlier, because you're not changing tires, the races aren't long enough, there isn't really any chance at an undercut.
See how it works out with these cooler conditions as well. Does tend to mean that you'll burn up a little bit more fuel just by the nature of having a little bit more grip and being able to stick your foot to the throttle a little bit more. There you see the track map, by the way, as the field filters its way towards the end of the lap. We're watching Floyd Kerr as he attacks the back of Errol Orexoy, +4 so far, that number 13. Now, well, stick, that's the question. That damage on the front of Floyd Kerr's machine not deterring him from trying to fight his way forward. Rasmussen's still bleeding, by the way. He now loses out to Brandon Six as the Keeping It Real Porsche gets his way onto the podium.
Rasmussen's going to be able to fight back here down the back straight coming into turn 12. That Audi, it isn't really sold as the fastest car in a straight line out of all the GT3 cars, but it's certainly doing quite a bit of work fighting with Brandon Six. He's actually going to pull a nose ahead of him into the braking zone. Six isn't able to fight back, but he's going to try and go for a switchback, hope that Rasmussen overcooks it again. Kerr's also going to get by Urexoy in a similar way in turn 12. That's arguably the best passing zone on the track, and those were two textbook passes for Kerr and Rasmussen.
It's where you use the hole in the air being punched to work your way forward. Cole Antonio, by the way, fighting with Carl Strykars. Like I mentioned at the top, Strykars losing some momentum in the championship. Started this race in 11th, holds 11th for the time being, but being harassed by the traditional Manti colors on the 881. In front of them, Steven Martinez runs in the 10th position. So working into the 7th minute of this race, the top two are trying to break away, but by no means are they being allowed to. Andrew Rasmussen has been holding steady at 2.3 odd seconds to your race leader, and Sully Saad is right on the back of Michael Terrafino, up the hill into the braking zone at turn 1 as well, and Michael Terrafino, feeling the pressure maybe for the first time in a handful of races, runs wide at turn 1.
Sully Saad is better under braking into all the heavy braking zones. Into turn 1, into turn 12, he's constantly bringing it down, but he can't really take advantage of that because he's just a little bit too far back every single lap. And through the S's, he starts hemorrhaging a little bit more time. If he wants to pass Terrafino, he needs to figure out a way to get a little bit better through the middle sector of this track, get a better exit out of turn 12, and actually get into the draft of Terrafino to be able to go for a move into turn 1. But there's battles all over the track. This is for, I believe, literally last place on the track, and they're still fighting for it like it's the lead. Brian Hoskins went for a move there.
Yes, no, this is basically lost on track, and they are being separated by now 1.5 seconds from those in front. The more they fight, Jeff Costello, 34th, the last of basically the leading train. Yes, there are gaps and pockets where it's over a second, but for the most part, the field well and truly in a single file formation, but with plenty of action up and down. Let's check in with what is always one of our favorite things to do. It's the battle of the Chandlers, and right now it is Ryan Chandler that runs in the 29th position. That hops over the curb a little bit more than I think that he would have wanted, and now we'll see how much he loses, and you see the frown on his face.
Yeah, he tried to send it into the inside of Gary Brown there, who was closing the door and ended up just pinching himself off there. I think Steven Martinez got into a little bit of trouble after turn 12. He's able to recover. He's back in line, but he's behind Gary Brown now. I think he might have gotten a little bit of help at turn 12 potentially, because I can't imagine he looped it himself down there.
Well, we'll find out, and I think this will be the first of the replays that we grab, and then we have a
triple
lot more.
help.
Yeah, that's call it. Whoa! So why does Martinez stop though?
I think the traction control on that Ferrari was probably just going like clunka clunka, and he couldn't get back on the throttle because that car was bouncing. He got billiard balled there.
Fair enough. Let's see if we can spool this one back and grab another look at this one. Cole Antonio, by the way, spun around through the penultimate corner. Whatever happens there, I don't think it was pretty. And Cole Antonio now has to find an opportunity to rejoin the track. Checking back with your race leaders, though. It's down to like 3 car lengths between the two of them. And Rasmussen's now under 2 seconds to your race leader. Whether it's Sully Saad being great under brakes, I will still maintain Michael Terrafino's BMW is not well suited to the conditions here today.
It's very, very wide though, which I think is the best possible condition for it. That's what's suiting him very well here.
It is long
Sully
as well, by the way.
It is. It's long and wide and in tight hairpins. It sounds like a joke, but that legitimately is helping Michael Terrafino. He's been able to close the door. He's been able to prevent Sully Saad from really taking advantage of his best spots of the track. And there goes Greg Doucette around again, or Nicholas Carangis. They look exactly the same.
And there was the McLaren that I did allude to earlier. That was then Dale Peterson. I don't think 2 and 2 came together, but we'll have to wait and see on that one. See if we can grab a look at what happens then. First with Cole Antonio. We still haven't looked at anything that happened on the start, just by the way, so we will do that. Cole Antonio runs wide, then loops it. Fortunately, the engine's not in the front of that car, so it will be more ego damage than anything else. And, well, did Peterson just turn across Carangis there?
I might have to look at a different angle of that, but I would be kind of inclined to suggest that Carangis sent it into a gap that didn't exist into the S's. They weren't side by side. Carangis barely had a nose in there, and you got to turn to take the S's. It's not a straight, so I wouldn't blame Dave Peterson much there, and luckily he didn't get away with much damage. That beautiful McLaren will live to spit more fire.
Well, you say that, but he took the tow back to pit lane, so we will not live to spit more fire.
What are you doing, Dave?
Not sure exactly what happened there, but 10 minutes gone in this race. We are down 2 drivers, Peterson and Carangis, the first of our retirees in this race so far, and I think it's settling down somewhat, so maybe it's an opportunity, Joey, for us to start to pick our way through some of what happened on the start.
Break out the replay spool, break out the Panopticon, or the Panopticon Capote. Race Spot misses nothing. This is Alex Wright, literally lap 1, turn 1. I think that's Kyle Strykars to his inside, and yeah, that's what happens at turn 1. No real fault of anybody there.
I don't know. I'm going to disagree with you hard and say that Alex Wright is running basically in the middle of the road, and whoever it is, I think you're probably right that it's the 969. So I don't. That's Kenny Rodriguez. I'm going to put the majority of the blame onto him for that one.
I'd say it's probably like 60% on him, but I'm kind of inclined to think better of it just because it's lap 1. He was about alongside, and that angle does make it look a little bit worse. But I can't differentiate those SRT Esport cars. They got to put like a highlight or something on there because Rodriguez and Strykars look exactly the same, and they're literally right next to each other on track this week. So that makes it even more difficult. This is Chris Cole Antonio. That's a Wani Turbe, I think, just sending it in and forgetting to brake.
I think that indicates more what turn 1 is traditionally like. This then happens later on for Jeff Costello. It's just nothing happens. It's all just, cars fighting for space, and I think indicates just how clumsy it is. You were right. I think that's Floyd Kerr being a bit clumsy there as well.
Yeah, Kerr got a little bit impatient, I think. He thought he would have a little bit more grip, I think, on those colder tires, but he definitely did not. And then Greg Doucette, completely innocent, did absolutely nothing wrong, but there's Kerr to the inside, and then Doucette's trying to come through, and there's a car right there. Absolutely nothing he can do. as usual, Greg Doucette always stays out of trouble when he's on his lonesome, but when there's other trouble on track, somehow it always finds his nose.
Three-way fight for the race lead. Wonderful little drone shot as they wind out of the final corner. But Andrew Rasmussen has indeed managed to tow himself back up to the lead. Brandon 6 has been dropped from the equation provisionally. Last time by, he still gained 3/10 to the race leader, so it may very well be a four-way fight soon. By the way, I don't think that was all of the replays that we're going to look at of the start, but I think it's just calmed down somewhat in terms of the major drama and the fact that now Rasmussen has wrangled some speed out of the Audi. It is Porsche, or rather BMW, Porsche, Audi, Porsche at the front of this field.
I'm starting to have a little bit of conspiracy in my mind, because Andrew Rasmussen is able to fight for the win this week with Sully Sod and Terrafino. He's the fastest car on track right now. The last time we saw him have this kind of race-winning pace was at Road America. Maybe Andrew Rasmussen just has to race at tracks that have the word America in the title.
Well, we're running out of them. I think that's the honest answer. Now, Colantonio, well, it's not exactly deja vu, but it's the second time he's gone around in that particular corner. Now, what happened to Juan Iturbe? Because that was the other moment that we had triggered on our timing screen. This one into turn number 1, and that's a little bit of an aggressive block, if I've ever seen one.
A little bit of an aggressive block, and then just kind of a lazy bumper-to-bumper impact in turn 1. Both of them just kind of disagreed on when they needed to get back on the throttle. I think it was a little bit of an overcorrection on the brakes for Baron Glover or Mark Feiler, whichever one of the Cloud Valve drivers that was. But here's Gary Brown, again, still driving his way through the field. This is what we like to see. It's not what he likes to see, because he's probably sick and tired of having to drive his way through the field, but he's always aggressive. It makes for a good show for us.
Yeah, no, it does. He's got to find about 5 odd seconds, though, to catch up with Nick Silver, and would assume that is likely too much of a task to think about without maybe some strategy coming into play as well. But only time will tell as we wind through this triple right-hander. Patience required on throttle. And I have noticed it's not as dark as it was at the start of this race. What's happened in terms of weather conditions? Well, surprisingly, it's still bang on the money at 99 degrees Fahrenheit.
Well, Arjuna, I was just joking when I said it would get cooler, so haha, April Fools.
Apparently. I'm a little bit shocked when it comes to so many different things. Here's Steven Martinez, by the way, coming down to pit lane. 20 minutes left to go in this race. Weaving back and forth as he tries to spot his pit stall. And will hit the marks. And you would not expect him to go up on the jacks. Just a short fill of fuel, and that would be it for a traditional pit stop. Back up at the front of your field. Brandon 6 trying to close. Last time by, gained half a second to the race leader.
This is exactly what Sully Sod needed to do. If he can get a good exit out of turn 10 here, we know he's better on the brakes into the heavy braking zones. He might have a shot, but on the exit, it looks okay. It's going to expand a little bit to 4/10 here, but let's see the power of the Porsche here in a straight line. Andrew Rasmussen as well is going to get a double draft from both of these guys. They passed the DRS sign. Unfortunately, no DRS in the GT3 cars. Maybe that's an update for the future.
No.
We might have to give them, but
no.
Sully Sod's not going to be close enough. You can keep that in your mind bank. He can make up about a 10th on the back straight in the draft, so he's got to be closer than that.
I think the main thing, by the way, is that Terrafino did a great job of running the middle line on the braking zone of turn 11 and compromise Sod's ability to go deeper and then try and get a better run to be within touching distance on the exit of the corner. No, Joey, no DRS for GT3 cars.
Let's do it.
No.
Let's do DTM tried it, and I think it was a miserable failure.
Exactly. It was a miserable failure, and so let's never think about it again. Veloz has lost a little bit of ground. Behind him, Regan Chandler running all the way up in 12th position. He is far and away the best of the Chandlers here today, and we ride on board with him in a three-way tussle momentarily. A couple more cars stacked up behind.
And I'm very proud of Regan Chandler because I can see clearly now. The glaucoma background is gone. It's nice and clear. There's some nice books in the background. I can almost read the titles. That's how crisp it is. And yeah, he is outperforming Ryan. It is, frankly, normally Ryan who's ahead in the inter-Chandler battle, but clearly Regan has found something at COTA here. This is a weird track that sometimes rewards drivers who don't always sometimes on the natural terrain road courses, the natural order of the field looks pretty normal, but we go to COTA, a weird track with some weird corners, and you start to see some weird stuff shuffling around in the field.
So you say weird, I say good. The only people who don't like it are those with single monitors
That's true.
that aren't ultra widescreen, because I should clarify, I have a single monitor. It is a 49-inch widescreen. I love it. I absolutely love it. By the way, Circuit of the Americas is very underrated overall. We've had some really interesting races here in the past on RaceSpotTV. Gearhead25 does also say, who would ever want to put DRS on GT3 cars? Joey has a lot of wild ideas, so forgive him. Forgive him for that one.
This is what Arjun is here for you. He reins me in.
I'm here to temper you in and to suffer your puns, apparently. I didn't know the full extent of the deal I was signing up for. Here's a look at what happened to that Ferrari for We Race Esports. Ooh. Now, did he just miss the braking zone entirely?
Yes.
Okay.
I think he just completely lost focus. It's a long back straight. It's easy to do. He might have been looking at his relative or something, and he's like, oh, crap, there's a braking zone there. I'm way too late. Luckily, there is an absolute sea of runoff out there, and he won't be punished too heavily for that. And there's also a huge gap to Regan Chandler behind him.
Yeah, to be fair, he did the right thing there, which is recognize the situation, break in a straight line, which is the shortest distance possible, and I think actually minimize the time loss. Good heads-up driving there. Four-way fight now for first, though, with 16 minutes to run. Michael Terrafino increasingly under pressure, not just from Sully Sod, not just from Andrew Rasmussen, but now from Brandon Six as well. And maybe for the first time, Michael Terrafino looks like he's starting to sweat.
And we've seen quite a few drivers start to kick off this pit cycle. We are past halfway in the race. We saw Martinez and Rodriguez come in. I think two of the most popular last names in the United States. So who could be next, I think the leaders have to start thinking about coming in soon. It's a long lap. You're not really going to be able to extend another full lap compared to the rest of the field, so it should be pretty equal between everybody up here. But you have to imagine the fuel tanks are running pretty dry, because now Chandler and Brown come in. I can't imagine it's going to be more than 1 or 2 laps.
It's going to all be just setting about how much time on pit lane you spend. Now, Sully Sard may very well have just been minding the time and doing some fuel saving, and if that is the case, that might be the call that wins him this race, gives him the track position, because we talked about how this may be a race where passing is more likely, but we haven't seen it at the front of the field. More and more cars indeed are working their way down to pit road. We've got about 23 or so still yet to not pit, or left to pit rather. Only 3 retirements, Colantonio, Peterson, and Carangis from the 39 that ended up taking the green flag. Will we see drivers in this lap, or will anyone, somewhat surprisingly, go against the grain and go one further lap? One familiar face at the front, 3 new ones. Michael Terrafino has had 5 pole positions in the 8 races so far, wants to make it 4 wins of 8. This is definitely going to be the hardest fight he's had so far this season.
And the COTA pit entry is a very tricky pit entry. You're on the brakes before you're actually turning in, before the pit commitment line, so it's easy to outbrake yourself a little bit, throw it back off on the road, and then you're completely out of luck. You have to tow. You can't go around a full another lap because there's so much distance to cover. But let's see, Terrafino here out of the second to last corner. There's still 1 more lap in the tank, I think, so he's going to keep going. Sully Sod's going to keep going.
That was a car
I think
that
I just saw Rasmussen. Off, right? No, Brandon Six and Rasmussen are both coming in. No, Rasmussen's staying out. Okay. 6 is in. The final quarter is really weird.
It's a quirk of the timing. Wonderful camera shot. There we go. Brandon Six followed in by Eric Kulaga in the Lamborghini, but a bit of a split, and I don't hate the call from Brandon Six. He was faster consistently than the leader at the front of the field, and thinks the undercut can give him track position. Sully Sard was closer than he's ever been down out of turn number 1, but now through the S's, it separates out once more.
And if Sully Sod does end up side by side with Terrafino, maybe through the stadium section in the latter half of this lap, I think both drivers are probably going to regret not coming in that last time around, because that's going to be exactly what Brandon Six needs to make up a little bit of ground on clean track. Unfortunately, though, actually, now that I say that, I do just now notice that Brandon Six has absolutely not come out in clean track. He's got Jeff Carollo right ahead of him.
Well, the hope would be that he can clear him quickly. Carollo last time by 2:07.790. 2 seconds slower than the leaders, although this lap has been pretty awful when it comes to them, and it's the closest that Sully Saad has been. He pokes out of the draft for a moment. Is he thinking about the lunge on the lap? We expect them to come down to pit lane. Is he maybe trying to cover off Rasmussen? Doesn't overcommit into the braking zone. Terrafino leaves just enough racing room and holds on to the lead. Sully Saad slides back into second.
It was a little bit of a half-hearted attempt at the move. I don't think he was completely going for it there. Maybe he was just letting Terrafino know, you know, in a couple laps' time, I've definitely got the pace, I've definitely got the braking ability. You are not going to win this race easily. I will be hounding you for the rest of this race. But yeah, he wasn't able to make the move. Wasn't able to force Terrafino into a mistake either. Not a real surprise. Terrafino's had so much experience this season leading races with a little bit of pressure behind him that he's definitely worked out quite a few of the mistakes that we saw from him last season, and now he's going to come in. Is he?
They're all coming in.
He has to come in.
Yeah, sure.
Except Rasmussen, apparently.
No, I think Rasmussen's... Oh, whoa! Okay.
Wow.
Interesting call. That's all I have to say about that one. We'll see.
I hope he doesn't run out of fuel.
Yeah, I hope he doesn't indeed, because he was definitely pushing a little bit harder than some of the rest of the cars. Here's a look at RaceSpotTV replay, by the way. I think Kenny Duval has had a technical failure because out of turn 1, he just goes straight.
Oh dear. Let's see, coming out of pit lane, I think we'll get another conspiracy theory here, because the only time I've ever seen this happen is in AI racing on iRacing. Sometimes the AI just decide to go full throttle out of the pits and,
So it's an AI that took over, is what we're saying.
Yes, the AIs are taking over, the robots are taking over.
There was Brandon 6, you'll note, behind Sully Saad, and considerably behind Sully Saad. I think coming out behind Jeff Carollo did indeed really hurt the chances for the number 4 to jump in front of your race leaders. And speaking of lap times, by the way, 2:08.005 for Rasmussen. He is without a shadow of a doubt not coming out with the race lead.
Just trying to make sure Terrafino's back on the pace here through the S's. He did a fine job, but he is losing a tiny little bit of time to Rasmussen. You are right, that wasn't a very good lap the last time around for Rasmussen, but I don't know. Things definitely could even out here. Let's see what happened to Rasmussen through the final corner. This is where he lost all of his time. This is why he did a 2:08, I think. He was too busy trying to dummy himself there.
Yeah, I think at the point that he was committed, he had to go for it. I'm not really sure what the logic was there. Gary Brown continues that recovery. Fresh out of pit lane and now fighting along with Errol Orexoy. He's up into 8th. Will inherit at the very least 7th once Rodrigo Morales dives down to pit lane. Will likely also work his way up to 6th once we see Nick Silver make his mandatory trip to pit road as well. So Andrew Rasmussen, this time, will have no dramas as he makes his way down to pit lane.
I hope there's still fuel in that car. I hope he's not cutting out on pit lane, because that's another way to lose time. But he came in with about 23.8 seconds back to Terrafino. The pit lane delta it's difficult to tell. It's 31 seconds, but because it's a tighter lane, because you're not stopped the whole time, it's hard to calculate. But the only way we can calculate is by watching it here. Rasmussen's still waiting to get into his box, and Terrafino's coming through the final corner now. I can't imagine it'll be very close, but there's 10.8 seconds in the box for Terrafino, 9 seconds, 10 seconds for Rasmussen. Terrafino's going to get it easily.
Yeah, no, this was never even really going to be close. The question is Brandon 6. Who's lost a bit of time relative to those in front. Where will he end up? He's behind Rasmussen, and more importantly, with the way the traffic has played out, Rasmussen and 6 have got to close 2 full seconds once again, this time with only 9 minutes to go in this race.
That was Brian Hoskins in the BMW. He was doing his best to get out of the way, but unfortunately, he ended up getting in the way with Rasmussen coming out of the pits there. So just a tough situation for Rasmussen coming out of the pits, and he's trying to regain his bearings here. He doesn't have fresh tires on this car. They're still the same old tires, but they are a little bit cooler just from going through pit lane for a couple of seconds and from stopping for a couple of seconds. And Brandon 6 is really trying to take advantage of that right now. Wasn't able to dive to the inside anywhere in the S's, probably smartly. He's hanging back because he knows his best shot is into turn 12 here. And he's got pretty much an equal exit to Rasmussen there. I don't think he'll be close enough for the dive, but he is keeping the pressure on.
Yeah, definitely not close enough here. This then means now 2 split battles in terms of the podium. One for the top 2 steps and then one for that 3rd and final step. Does Sully Saad have anything, though, to throw And Michael Terrafino in the battle for the race lead. Thomas Amos has had an issue through the S's in that Ferrari 488, and well, he's got to be careful with the rejoin as, well, Jeff Costello goes wide off the track to try and take avoiding action.
Thomas was definitely looking at his relative there, so well done, Thomas, waiting for a door to actually open there. A lot of these drivers are going to have to think about off tracks as well. They're going to have to start thinking about that 13x incident limit. COTA is a track where off tracks really tend to stack up, even when you're not making mistakes like Thomas Amos did. He somehow managed to hit 2 curbs in one spin, by the way, but that's another off track for him. You're going to have to start thinking about that limit with all the off tracks that accumulate here.
Yeah, and just watch this angle, because I want to show just how wide Jeff Costello really did go, because that is the incident point that he would have picked up as a result. Half a second at the line, 7 minutes to go. Brandon Six losing a whole bunch of ground, by the way, now to Rasmussen, who is trying to close, but with time running out, the only one that I think has got a chance of dethroning Michael Terrafino at the front of this field will be Sully Saad. You say he's good into braking zones, but where will he really be able to get this move done?
That's a great question. That's the question that Sully Saad, I'm sure, is asking himself right now. It just comes down to when he gets another opportunity. I think if he gets another opportunity into turn 12, we know he'll be able to send it to the inside. We know Terrafino's probably going to be thinking about his 25-point championship margin right now, and he probably won't go for anything too, stupid in terms of defense. That's what happened to Jeff Fleischman on your screen right now, coming through the last corner of the stadium section. Just a little bit of a lazy spin in that Mercedes. That car does tend to like to do that sometimes.
It does. Rasmussen has now lost some time as well, so Brandon Six back in the fight for third. That definitely one to track. Floyd Kerr second in the championship runs in no man's land. He is in 5th, and Gary Brown, I did mention that he was going to be trying to maybe fight his way past Nick Silver. He's going to have to do it on track now. Half a second splitting the 2 Porsches as Brian Hoskins gets well out of harm's way.
Nick Silver has kind of been the most anonymous driver in this race, which I think is kind of a good thing for him. He hasn't gotten in any trouble. He's just been running his own race. I think he also pulled the Andrew Rasmussen pit strategy and went out for an extra lap on track, so he added another addition of anonymity to his own race, but he's up 6 spots. He started on the 6th row. He's P6 right now. He's probably going to fall to P7, I can only imagine, with Gary Brown behind him, but it's been a great race for Nick Silver.
And he did not lose time on the lap before he pitted with the will I not pit dance that we did see from Andrew Rasmussen in that Audi. Interesting line being taken there from Nick Silver through that triple right-hander. Cutting a little bit more of that second apex than I maybe would have expected. Can't see on that left side, by the way, Mark File up 14 positions so far. Has gotten past Roy Brown and now trying to build a little bit of separation. Check back in with your leaders then as they dive out of turn 5 with what should be 3 laps to go and 5 minutes to run. Still not close enough, you'd have to say, for Sully Saad if he really wants to have a look to try and fight for the lead here.
Just needs to hope for another mistake from Michael Terrafino, I think. He's running out of laps at the line. My math is correct, it should be 2 laps to go. But old Jeff Fleischman again. Let's see what happened to him. Oh my goodness, they managed to find a way to wreck on the straight. So that was Jeff, and that was Wani Turbe.
And Juan got disqualified instantly. You talked about incident limits, and well, Joey, case in point.
I mean, you could... Jeff did move over to the left a little bit there, but that was just an awkward accident for both of them. It's a straight. You shouldn't be running into each other on the straight. There's just 2 guys, I think. Not really sure what they were doing there.
Yeah, I'll put that one down as a racing incident, to be honest. A bit of blame on both sides, but it's only Fleischman that lives to tell the story. So 2 laps indeed at the line. It's Brandon Six who I think really... Rasmussen's gone around in the braking zone down at turn 12. The Audi has gone around and surely damaged. Rasmussen tries to rejoin the track. I must say that is not necessarily the safest rejoin that I've ever seen. That car does not look healthy, though.
Yeah, the car says twisted on the side, and it looks twisted as well.
Twisted, yeah. Oh, boy.
But that's all Brandon Six. That's what I thought what happened. It's hard to lose it. It's hard to lock the rear end in this car, and he got Brandon Six to the back of him there. Under braking, Six definitely didn't intend it. He just was a little bit too late in the brakes, closed a little bit too quick, and Andrew Rasmussen was the the unfortunate taker of that brunt there.
He was the turfy, as I will put it. Now, yeah, he's coming down. Oh, what a shame. Qualified towards the front, showed some really impressive race pace. Andrew Rasmussen will have to dive to pit lane and give up what would have been a potential podium position in that number 11 twisted Audi R8 GT3 LMS. Brandon 6 now, though, may see Floyd Kerr try and join this fight for the podium. So track that, of course, Kerr sits second in the points and needs to try and find his way forward, because despite the struggles that Michael Terrafino seems to be going through in that BMW, Joey, Sully Saad seems to have no answer to try and get his way through.
That's always the frustrating thing when you're in the battle for the lead. I mean, it's good for Sully Saad that he has the pace of Michael Terrafino, that he's able to keep pace with him, but he definitely wants that little bit more. He definitely wants that win, and that was his best run yet through the S's. He's been able to keep with him by about 3.5 tenths, and Terrafino makes a mistake on the exit. Terrafino gets a little bit out of shape out of turn 11. This is going to be Sully Saad's best chance. He's already bringing the gap down. He's in the draft. Sully's got to go for it in turn 12 here.
It's the penultimate lap of the race as well. Sully Saad is running out of time if he wants to step to the top step of the podium. Will jink to the inside again, half committed, half not committed. It will be Terrafino able to sweep his way around the outside, and while Sully Saad is alongside, is there the opportunity for a switch back into the stadium section? Terrafino runs his way wide, but is able to hold on for the time being. But one lap still left to go. Sully Saad is knocking on the door.
Got another switchback, but Sully got a little bit of oversteer there himself. I think he had to pound on the brakes to not get into the side of Michael Terrafino. Terrafino's off the rhythm coming through this like quadruple apex corner over the top of the hill.
That was entirely intentional to get a little bit more separation. Gap is up to half a second, and remember incident points. We've seen one disqualification, Joey. We will not want to see another. They will have to be careful with how much contact they can afford, how wide they will get. White flag in hand, and Michael Terrafino had a huge moment coming out of the final corner.
I'm not sure that was a huge moment. I think that was just him going full defense mode down the front straight. I'm not entirely sure he needed to do that, though. He ended up, actually, I think, slowing himself down a little bit and letting Sully Saad get a little bit closer. Down the hill, Saad is within 0.3 of a second. If he can stick with Terrafino, if he can do exactly the same thing he did on the previous lap, he'll have another shot at this. But this is the absolutely critical sector of the track. This is where Terrafino and his BMW are at their best through these fast corners, through the sweeping S's. But Sully Saad is doing a very good job of sticking to the back of him here, up the hill for the final time. He's sticking with him, but he's got to make sure he's close through turn 11.
That was a look at what happened to Kenny Rodriguez. I think tapped there by potentially Rodrigo Morales. A little bit far back, though, as the time is about to expire. 5 seconds and counting down. We work the final lap of this race, and out of that crucial turn 11, it is 0.4 of a second, and Sully Saad is not within touching distance.
Terrafino didn't have a great exit out of turn 11. He had accumulated about a 0.6 gap back to Saad, though, so he had a little bit of braking room. Saad's still going to peek to the inside. He's still going to try and spook Terrafino off. He is going to send it to the inside. Terrafino knows that coming very, very smartly. Turns a little bit to the right to open the door to make sure Sully doesn't get into the side of him. He's still going to hang on to the lead, though, but Sully is within touching distance here. He might go for a send into the final part of the stadium section. Terrafino's going to block that off, though. And I think that might have been Sully's last chance.
Yeah, and I think it was wise from Terrafino to just leave a little bit more room, knowing where he sits in the championship and knowing that maybe Sully Saad is thinking this is potentially his best chance for a win this season. A monumental fight to the very end. Might there still be a twist into the final corner? Sully Saad just too far behind. He was knocking at the door. Michael Terrafino, with his 5th pole position in 8 races, will convert it to his 4th win this season. The championship leader walks closer and closer to the championship title. My word, he tried his best, but Sully Saad could not stop the Team Beef number 94.
And I can only hope we get to talk to both of these drivers after this race, because I absolutely want to hear from both of them. I want to hear from Sully for his extremely incredible battle for the win here. I want to talk to Michael Terrafino again. He hasn't been talking to us for the past couple of weeks. And Brandon 6 as well on the podium with the alternate pit strategy. He's stuck with 3rd as well, and he was kind of all in his lonesome with the battle for the lead at the end there, but that's his first podium of the season.
see the fights to the line further back in the field, as now the top 20 or so will see themselves officially classified on the board. Maybe not as much passing at the front of the field as we were hoping for after some of the tighter and twistier tracks, Joey, but still a tense one and a fun one.
Yeah, it's not always about passing at the front of the field. It's about having a close race, and we certainly got that with Terrafino and Saad. We got that elsewhere in the field with Kerr and Brown both trying to recover their way through the field. Gary Brown, by the way, did end up finishing P5 after getting spun around on lap 1 and falling through the field, so downtown Gary Brown, I call him that because he always seems to end up getting punted down to the bottom of the field. He always drives back through it, though.
Nicely done. We will hopefully get that word with our drivers in our RaceSpotTV post-race show, as Joey mentioned. Of course, after this, the second part of the doubleheader, so don't go anywhere. We've got GT3 Sprint Series action coming up live for you here on RaceSpotTV and on VCO Esports. I think that's it. I think all cars are officially across the lines. Let's run you down through the 17 laps of the race and our unofficial race results. It is now a 4th win in 8 rounds for Michael Terrafino and that Team Beef BMWs. Cleaning up quite well, but Sully Saad pushed him all the way to the very end in what was the best performance we've seen of the 079 here in the season. Brandon 6, well, had a bit of contact with Andrew Rasmussen to grab the final step of the podium, but plenty of pace was shown in the Keeping It Real Esports number 4. Sea of Porsches, Floyd Kerr comes across the line in 4th, Gary Brown back up into 5th position, Nick Silver in 6th, with Eric Kulaga the best of the Lamborghinis in 7th, Errol Orexoy in 8th position in front of Carl Strykars, and Andrew Rasmussen dropped to 10th in the closing stages. Angelo Velos, Roy Brown, Steven Martinez, Mark Fahl, Regan Chandler, and then Matt Scherf, the top 16 with Carollo, Peterson, Vanco, and Wright rounding out the top 20. Wright, one of those involved in the lap 1 shenanigans up through turn number 1 as well. Michael Kulaga, Greg Doucette will be disappointed in his outing after being up inside of the top 10 at the start. Matt Dinsmore 23rd with Baron Glover, Patrick Cowgill, Thomas Amish, Jeff Costello, Joe McCauley, Rodrigo Morales, and Rodrigo Michelin. Bookending the top 30, just a handful more finishers, Rodriguez, Hoskin, and Fleischmann, and then Iturbe disqualified. Ryan Chandler, unfortunately, down in 35th position with Kenny Duval, Chris Colantonio, the fire-breathing McLaren of Dave Peterson, Carangis, Jad Khalife, not taking to the start of this race. Neither did Aidan Hill in his Lamborghini number 47. Well, Joey, we will give a couple of moments for the drivers to come and join us in the RaceSpotTV commentary booth, because I know you are looking forward to having a bit of a chat with them, but let's talk about what we got coming up next. Before we do so, it is a trip over to the land of the rising sun, and with the 4th and final of the VCO Grand Slams heading to Suzuka this weekend, maybe it's fitting that we go over to Suzuka next Tuesday at 8:20 p.m. Eastern.
Yeah, everybody always gets hyped for Suzuka, and for very good reason. I saw Kenny Duval in our chat earlier calling COTA a godforsaken racetrack, but nobody thinks Suzuka is a godforsaken racetrack. It is, or you could do a survey, it's probably one of the most popular tracks on iRacing. You can't really find flaws with Suzuka. It can be tough to pass at times, especially with its flowing nature at all times, but I think we're in for quite a good race, and even if we aren't, it's going to be a pleasant day for driving for everybody in the field.
Yes, no, even if it's maybe GT3 and Suzuka does tend to go quite well, although it tends to go quite well with chaos, is maybe what I would want to say. So we're waiting for a couple more drivers to join us, but Joey, I know you've been waiting, so why don't I let you have a little chat with Brandon 6, 3rd position here in today's race.
Here he is for the first time this season, Brandon 6. Welcome to the booth. First of all, I got to ask you and Andrew Rasmussen coming into turn 12 a couple of laps before the end, what happened?
Yeah, unfortunately, I misjudged his braking zone. I was trying to be ultra aggressive. I felt like I had the pace to honestly compete with the front two. Just needed to get there, and unfortunately, I was carrying too much speed and just unfortunately hit him. I tried to apologize to him before he left the server, but I don't know if he saw it. But if he's watching this, I'd like to apologize to him for sure. Definitely my fault. I'll take full blame of that.
You will also take the podium, though, so we will talk about that. You, even without that, would have been in the fight for it. So what clicked this week with COTA? Because it seemed like you kind of found another gear here. It seemed like this track really worked for you.
Yeah, I'm typically I I typically drive the next-gen car on the oval side. Of course, next-gen car runs here a lot. So I've had a lot of experience running here, so I was pretty familiar with the layout. And, I mean, essentially the next-gen car is a GT3 car, just heavier. So I just got to fine-tune to it, and I grabbed onto it pretty quickly. And I actually, like I said, I feel like I had the pace to compete with those guys up front and maybe get a win. Just a couple of mistakes here and there kind of prevented that.
So what you're saying is when we finally do my idea of sending GT3 to Martinsville, we'll have to look out for you and Nick Silver.
Oh, heck yeah.
Let's do it. I endorse it.
I'd be totally down. That'd be a brawl.
But next week, unfortunately, it's not Martinsville. Unfortunately, it's about 6 Martinsvilles long at Suzuka. What are you looking forward to in another Grade 1 track next week?
Unfortunately, I don't know a lot of the tracks on the schedule, so it's been a learning experience for me. And it's just kind of the whole idea of running this league so far this season is just learning these cars and learning a lot of the different tracks and stuff. It's a whole different discipline for me, so it's been a lot of fun so far, just trying to stay out of trouble and not make anybody mad.
And congrats on 3rd place again this week, and I guess before I kick you out, Keeping It Real Esports, give everybody a shout out who helps you in keeping it real.
Yeah, I gotta obviously thank the team Keeping It Real. We put a lot of work into, obviously, on the oval side, and we're starting to do the road side as well. Trying to get that up and running and hopefully be competitive on this side as well. But shout out to the family, shout out to you guys on the broadcast, and everyone who puts on this league.
Shout out indeed to the Six family. Congrats on the podium. We'll see you next week.
Thank you guys. Have a good one.
That was Brandon Six, P3 this week, and unfortunately the only driver who wants to talk to us, Arjun. I don't know where old Michael Terrafino is. Our old friend Space Cat, where is he? And Sully Sod too, his first podium as well. So hopefully they get the message here from this broadcast. Hopefully someone sends him a strongly worded letter, and we'll get to talk to him next week.
Yeah, maybe next week. Unfortunately, not going to get the chance, but we get more racing coming up in a handful of moments' time from the GT3 Fix Series, 35-minute races. Now 40 minutes on the board and an open setup competition, but the same track and the same cars. How will the complexion change? Again, let's run you down through the series schedule. 3 races left to go. Suzuka and Rodskogen after this one. 10 rounds of the championship. You're allowed to drop one of the rounds in terms of your lowest points total. However, that round cannot be the final round, and therefore, Joey, there is always a bit of trepidation for the championship leader heading into a season finale.
I hope everybody has Duolingo downloaded. I'm going to do the same thing too, because I'm going to study up on my Norwegian for the final week. I did that for 1 week in high school. I remember one word, and it's the word for man in Norwegian, which is just mon. So I'm going to study up on that, and it'll be a pretty crazy finale in Norway.
You have a lot more words to say. Talking of your driver standings, though, at least when it comes to pros, because we split them up into pros and AMs in this one. They fight on track together, but they score points separately. Vincent Trepinet is starting to build a bit of a margin. 15 points separates him from Diego Morales. Sean Campbell, with the unintended switch to the McLaren mid-season, coming not just with a change of car to something maybe not so favored, but also to a 20-something odd point penalty, has dropped 21 points back from the leader. And we saw that last week. Sean struggled to get speed out of the McLaren. What will he be able to do here at the Circuit of the Americas?
The only real benchmark we have from the previous race was Dave Peterson in the fixed McLaren. We know that's not always the most comparable. The fixed setup on the McLaren is always different from whatever mysterious chemical setup that Sean Campbell manages to invent in that McLaren over the course of the week. So it's tough to predict. He didn't tell me how he was looking forward to coming into this week. He normally gives me a little bit of a preview, so it's going to be a little bit of a mystery, but you have to imagine he's going to be on the pace either way.
Talk about the AM drivers standing then as well. Like we said, we split them up in terms of how they fight on track and score points, but they have to still compete with the pros in terms of track position. It's Miguel Angel Fonseca that's starting to build the advantage here. Rob Campbell's had a handful of unlucky moments, you'd have to say, over the course of the season. He runs second with Bergstrom, ZT, Rutherford through the top 5. Turner Stroll's had some good performances this season as well. We do have team championships across both of the classes, and in both classes, well, somewhat of runaway leaders. However, for Unit SimSport, SimCity Racing are starting to find a little bit more strength recently. We saw Sean Dickinson in that BMW running at the very front of the field last time out, Joey, and well, Unit SimSport with the mid-season rebrand, we'll see exactly how things play for them.
And they have quite the armada with Vincent Trepanier, with Caven Norris, with Arnaud Genet, with a whole host of drivers at Unit SimSports. It's going to be very, very difficult to knock them off the top of this Pro Championship. RSR by Butt Kicker and SimCity Racing, but more so RSR by Butt Kicker, they would be more in the conversation if, unfortunately, Sean Campbell didn't get forced into that McLaren,
yes.
and if Ted Lowendick had a little bit less bad luck. He's had a run of bad luck in these past couple of races. He started, I think, from the back a couple of weeks ago deliberately, or last week rather, at Oschersleben to go for a last to top 10 challenge. It went very, very badly. If he qualifies normally this week, I think it could be a far better day for RSR by Butt Kicker. We might get a two-way battle for the Pro Championship.
I'm just saying there's a reason why those last to first challenges are reserved for unimportant races for the most part. Again, a look up above from our RaceSpotTV track map here at the Circuit of the Americas. Built, of course, to bring Formula One to the Lone Star State. It's had some minor issues with the track surface over the years. However, it is still one of the most technical challenges available in North America. And Joey, we've talked about passing opportunities in that first race of the evening. Turn 1 and Turn 12 seem to be the most prevalent.
They were the most prevalent in the last race, and they're going to be even more prevalent in this race, frankly, because with the differences in setups, that's going to expand the differences in the braking zones even more, because you will physically be able to either brake later or brake earlier than on your normal fixed setup, depending on how you've decided to set up the car, whether you've decided to put a little bit more downforce on it, whether you've decided to trim a little bit more out for the back straight and the front straight. It all depends on what the drivers have been able to do, and like I said, those long straights are going to come into consideration too with how drivers have trimmed out.
As always, we get some onboard cameras, and today we get a double look on board with Arnaud Ginest. Look at the top left, and on the left below you see the face cam, and then you see the look at the triple screens and the setup in front of the Unit SimSport driver. Got Pete Newhook down low, Fonseca, the AM Championship leader, on the middle in the bottom of your screen. McLaughlin, Caven Norris, Caleb Lehman, Teddy Lowendick, and Mark Kalin all shown here. And then we also have, there's the look at Sean Campbell on his little single screen monitor. Now, is Sean Campbell back in the BMW?
Huh?
That does not look like the McLaren dash, I am just saying.
That's kind of a mystery. He hasn't said anything about switching cars. I have to imagine it is the McLaren. It's just probably just an optical illusion or something. I don't think he's back in the Porsche.
We're going to have to wait and see.
Yeah.
No. He is in a BMW. What manner of sorcery is going on now? So do remember that Sean Campbell has this 20-point penalty because, as he claims, he tried to register for a race and it put him in the McLaren accidentally.
So he's just given up on the championship. He's taken another 20-point penalty to drive the BMW for the next 3 weeks.
Apparently, we did see Sean Campbell in the IMSA Esports Michelin Global Championship this past weekend, running for Hardpoint by Delta Sport, by the way. So Sean Campbell continues to get around and run with the best of the sim racing teams. These are all drivers, by the way, on their first qualifying lap. So we'll get some times onto the board in a handful of moments' time. The first of them will actually be Nathan Deering in the AM category. And remember, even though we can look at times separately across classes, they will be grouped together on the grid itself. So to keep that in mind, here comes the Hardpoint by Delta Sport Mercedes 99 winding to the final corner. With about half the qualifying session already burnt without a lap time on the board. So Nathan Deering will be lap time number 1. It's a 2:05.3, excuse me, but already the pros start to punch in their lap times. 2:03.326 for Diego Morales. Ryan Pucktel a full second slower at 2:04.2. That's a little bit more like it. As the times start to come in thick and fast, Vincent Trepanier roars to the top of the board.
Half a second over the rest of the field, and if you need a driver to root for this week, Nathan Deering had a terrible race last week. He got punted into the sky after a little bit of a mistake through the final corner, got kicked up into the air by Ted Lowendick, but if you want a driver who's come back from hardship, I think you will definitely find a very endearing story with Nathan.
Miguel Angel Fonseca jumps up into second, of course, the leader in the AM Championship. We watch Mitchell Ian Green winding up through this middle portion of the lap and heading down towards the braking zone at turn 11. So difficult. That's turn 9 that exits you out of the Estes complex, then a almost flat-out left-hander no matter what car you're in into that braking zone, and run your way through the corner onto the power, onto that long back straightaway. Diego Morales, by the way, trending well on what will be his second lap time on the board here. Now, of course, pole position at 2:02, and I think immediately has invalidated his lap time just as I was talking about it.
He's going to be limited on time. He better get out of the pits very, very quickly, because I don't know if he's going to have time to go out for another lap or even think about being able to improve. Here's the other RSR by butt kicker driver, Ted Lowendick. He actually has a livery on this car by virtue of not switching to the BMW at the last minute this week, so he's repping the sponsors, and he's in a different room. That's either maybe he just twisted the rig for some reason.
To be
I don't know
fair,
what's
we
up there.
don't have the background, so it's hard for us to really know what is going on.
Some jackets back there. I don't know. Oh, I know exactly what it is. I'm not going to tell you, though. I'm going to make you figure it out, Arjuna.
Okay, you'll make me figure it out. Out of the final corner, Lowendick. Still no lap time. Invalidates his first one, so he's another driver who's only going to get one more attempt to get a lap time onto the board. Now, Vincent Trepigny very gingerly winding up for a qualifying run. And just see him trying to mind the tires as best as possible. Tell you what, though, might be interesting. We'll get the look with Arnaud Guinest a little later on at a full lap around, and we'll look from behind him. Morales at full chat trying to go around because, like you say, he's got 60 seconds to start this lap before the time expires for him.
Yeah, I'm just trying to do some like reverse math in my head right now to see if he'll actually make it to the line. It's going to be...
He should.
He should, but it's going to be tough. If he makes like one mistake through the final corners or something, or gets off pace a little bit, he can't do what Vincent Trepigny was doing and then slow roll it a little bit and save the tires. He has to go completely 100% push right now, because if he doesn't, he's not going to make the line.
Yeah, I just wonder what Arnaud Guinest is doing as well. My timing screen indicated this was a kind of an outlap for him. However, he definitely will not have time to get back to the line. We ride from that shoulder perspective with one of our Unit Sim Sport drivers. Bit of a wiggle as he winds out of that stadium complex. Currently sits 7th with a 2:03.7 is fastest. So 9/10 splitting him from Vincent Trepigny, his teammate. That bar at the top now, I'm not sure what lap time it is judging that 3:12 against, but it says plus 1 point something. So I'm not entirely sure this is going to be the fastest lap, but we'll find out now. As out of the final corner he comes. And I'm not really sure what's going on.
I think he might have been about 4 seconds slower on that lap. So I think Arnaud is just probably getting a little bit of extra practice in here, if anything. He knows that he's qualifying is over, and he thinks, you know what, I might as well go out and do a couple of extra laps, keep running around this track, get a little bit of extra practice in. Why not, I guess? But his teammate Vincent Trepigny is already on pole. All of his challengers are off the track right now. I guess Diego Morales is still out there. He still might have one shot on his lap, but Vincent's not happy with his pole. He wants to extend it even further. He wants to make it a full half second over Sean Campbell in second.
I think part of this as well is trying to set some intent to the championship. Crisp up to second in pro, but Trepigny finds a world of improvement. 6/10 clear of the field with 50 seconds left to play in go fast time.
Yeah, that was just a mic drop by Vincent Trepigny. He said, 3/10 gap, that's not enough for me. I'm going to go over half a second over the rest of the field. Let's see if Diego Morales has anything to match that. I'd be surprised if he was able to find 7 whole tenths of a second on this lap, especially considering he was really rushing that outlap to make it to the line, but he did make it to the line. This lap will count. He should make it to the line on this second lap as well. Through the second to last corner, the most difficult corner on the track there. He did very well not to get a little bit too wide. Then the final corner, you got to figure out your limits there. How far can you go to the right? You can't cross the white line. Can he beat a 2:02.5?
And he's only going to make it by about 5 seconds. He finds some marginal improvement, but like you say, hustling all the way back around to complete qualifying for Diego Morales will not get him closer to the front of the field. And, well, we had a rather tumultuous start to lap 1 in our first race of the evening. What does our second race have in store for us? Let's dial you down through the starting grid for this round 8 in 2022 of Season 4 in the Precision Racing League GT3 Sprint Series. We throw 40 minutes onto the board, we give drivers an open setup, and we see how it stacks up. And while it was close in our race earlier tonight in qualifying, it is nowhere close for Vincent Trepigny in another postal code for the unit SimSports number 87, a 202.528 Martin Crisp alongside in the SimCity Racing number 954. 6/10 splitting them though. Sean Campbell will take another 20-point penalty, running in the number 26 for RSR by butt kicker. Diego Morales alongside with Gonzalo Cortez and Sean Dickinson, 5th and 6th positions. Arno Guinness running 7th with the bright number 19 Russ Racing of Mitchell Ian Green alongside Ryan Pucktail, and then the AM class pole position winner Caleb Lehman rolls from 10th position, and he's got some company. Alec Bergstrom and Miguel Fonseca 11th and 12th right behind Lehman, with Alex Caruso and then Ted Lowendick building some separation between the AM podium and those behind. Lyndon Swaby, Kevin Norris, and Vincent Sepulveda 15th through 17th, with Turner Schroll 4th in AM, 18th overall. Pete Newhook and Brett Thurman round out the top 20. Colin McKenzie and Nathan Deering row 11, with Nick McLaughlin back in 23rd. Jeff Evans on the outside of row 12, with Darren Rutherford in the Valhalla Motorsports Lamborghini. Blake Ziti in the Long Island Racing Team number 50, who we saw running well a week ago. David Van Roy 27th, with Marc-Andre Deschardins 28th. Eric Dubé and Mark Kalin round out the top 30. We'll scroll through the rest of the names. Mostly AMs down this end of the order, but Joey, as we get set to go racing, what are we expecting at the front of this field?
What aren't we expecting at the front of the field is my question after that race last time out in the fixed series. Although it should be a little bit tougher of a race, because Vincent Trepigny has shown his skill here. He's shown his speed here by pulling 0.6 of a second over the rest of the field. So again, I repeat what I said about getting Michael Terrafino off of his game in the fixed series. If Martin Crisp or Sean Campbell or Diego Morales wants to beat Vincent Trepigny here, they need to attack at turn 1. They need to find a way to make sure you're right to his rear bumper on the initial start and make sure you have a shot to stick a nose into turn 1. Because if you don't, Vincent's going to be in complete control and he's not going to look back.
We talked about weather conditions in the first race, and you'll note it's slightly warmer, although I think mostly that is down just to a little less cloud cover here, as we are once again racing on April 1st, and it will likely only get cooler from this point forward. So cold tire is going to be a factor. Strong winds as well. The 3 AM class contenders at the front of their class run 10th, 11th, and 12th overall, and then have 5 pro cars splitting them from the rest of the field, Joey. It's perfect situation for those 3 to stay out of trouble and try and build a little bit of a gap.
It could also be a very bad situation for them, though, to get into trouble fighting the pros. We know Alec Bergstrom has had that problem in the past 2 weeks, especially 2 weeks ago at Barcelona, when he was on AM pole, got turned by a pro on lap 1. So you're never safe in the AM field.
Well, the second part of the doubleheader at the Lone Star State will come to a close. It is the championship leader, Vincent Trepigny, that will jump the field and get us racing at the Circuit of the Americas. What will happen on the run to turn number 1? Martin Crisp feeling the pressure from Sean Campbell. Up the hill they'll go, and Crisp misses the braking zone. It will give an opportunity for Sean Campbell to look to the inside for the race lead for a moment, but Trepigny holds on. Down out of turn 1 though, Martin Crisp goes from 2nd to 5th in the blink of an eye.
Crisp was defending for his life from Sean Campbell there. He blocked him into the wall and then kept blocking him into turn 1. And I think that's why he outbraked himself. He just tried to send it a little bit too hard. Very well avoided by Vincent Trepigny, though. He saw the bowling ball of Martin Crisp coming forward there. He turned a little bit to the right to open the door, and he's kept the lead because of it.
No chaos, interestingly, on this first lap of the race, at least so far, as they will exit out of turn 9, dive down the hill and into the braking zone that will lead them onto the back straightaway. Side by side, we see Martin Crisp now defending from Diego Morales. He'll get the run, and then there's contact between the two of them. What has happened on the exit of the corner? Martin Crisp has gone around. I think Diego Morales, though, somehow still pointed in the right direction.
Yeah, I looked away. I was looking at that battle at the back of the field in turn 12. Everybody is just checked up. There's a whole bunch of drivers involved. Two of the hard point by Delta Sport drivers, I think, got into each other. And yeah, Martin Crisp is around. Nick McLaughlin is around at the back of the field, adding to his bad luck as well. There's no chaos in turn 1, but I think there is a little bit more in turn 12 going on as well. Marc-Andre Desjardins and Eric Dubé almost got into each other.
Oh, so it's all kicking off. We thought we had a clean one, and through the stadium you see one of the hardpoint by Delta Sport BMWs fighting side by side with a Porsche who goes very, very wide. Front of the field, though, maybe this is what we should expected. Sean Campbell to be here and to put on a show. Fighting with Trepigny, maybe not for the title, maybe just for victory here today. Across the line, lap 1 in the books. About 20 laps to play in this race. Trepigny, Campbell, Cortez, Guinness, and Dickinson, the top 5, as they build into turn number 1.
Sean Campbell said in our chat that he's going to consider playing Bloons Tower Defense 6 while running this race. I don't think he can hang back anymore. I don't think he can play Bloons anymore because he's actually got to fight for the lead, and there is some more calamity at turn 1. Is that Arnaud Genet? No, it's Caven Norris who got turned around.
And did you notice Diego Morales got mixed up in it once more? So second in the championship, well, does not get much worse for Diego, at least as it plays out right now. You were right, it was Caven Norris in the 774 that now finds himself all the way down 29th position as Lyndon Swaby cuts across the grass after being involved in that 3-wide moment at the front of the field. There's a 3-car breakaway at the front, and I get the distinct impression we're going to be cycling through quite a few replays at the start of this one.
Yeah, break out the old replay reel. I hope the computer's ready, because there's, I think, even more stuff to see. Caleb Lehman has hung on to the lead in AM, so he's survived lap 1. Miguel Angel Fonseca and Alec Bergstrom have all survived lap 1 in AM, which I think is exactly the opposite of what I predicted on the pace lap. I predicted that it might be a little bit of a dangerous island there to be in the pro sandwich, but they got lucky. Everybody behind him in the AM class was were the drivers that actually got into trouble on lap 1. So they have survived, and here we go.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think let's just try and figure this one out from the replay, because we only saw this, and yeah, it's clumsy when they get together. And so what happens after that seems to be completely unrelated. You could see a calamity and comedy of errors down at turn 11.
Yeah, that looked a little bit like the incident from the 24-hour esports race a couple of days ago here at COTA in a different corner, but far less controversial. Behind, though, that's just a COTA moment. Nothing else you can even say about it. There's Caven Norris diving into the inside. That was fine. And then behind him, everybody just checks up into a heavy braking zone, and they all run into the back of each other. On
board with Nick McLaughlin, who was behind Blake Ziti in the Long Island Racing Team Audi R8, and yeah, he gets tagged as well.
Mark Kalin.
Just not pretty, I think is the best way to put it.
It's exactly the same thing as what we saw in the fixed race a little bit earlier. There was just drivers getting maybe a little bit impatient on lap 1. They saw the doors open and they sent it in there, but those doors were very rapidly going to close on lap 1. The SRT Esports GT3 day gets even worse, and I think that BMW just backed it on the track as well to make that even worse in the dying seconds of that. And so there's Diego Morales getting even worse as well.
Oh my days! The 424 there, Lyndon Swaby did very much send it down the inside. Now I think Morales did have a slowdown penalty, by the way. I think that is why we saw the little incident for him, but yeah, just not pretty once again.
Yeah, I wish it was a prettier lap 1. I wish it was prettier, but it's been a little bit messy at the back of the field, and it's not giving up. This train is still not over. Caleb Lehman, the AM leader, Ryan Pucktel, not the pro leader. He's 7th in pro, I believe, but he's made up a couple of spots, and you have to think when you're Caleb Lehman right now, do you want to fight Pucktel for position? Not really, but you also don't want to... Oh my goodness, I'm getting distracted by Mark Kalin. He had a good race last night in the MX-5s, Arjuna. I thought the Mark Kalin season was turning around, but nope.
Sorry, side by side through the S is never going to work. Lifts himself over one sleeping policeman and then the other, but fortunately will get away without too much damage in that one. Still watching that AM class leader fighting here. That is Caleb Lehman. Let's check in though, more pertinently maybe, with Miguel Angel Fonseca running second in class and the championship leader exactly where he wants to be as we jump on board with him in virtual reality.
Yeah, the start of this season in the AM class was very unpredictable. You could not predict who was going to be in the front of the field, whether it was Rob Campbell or Bergstrom or Lehman or Fonseca or just about anybody else. Blake Ziti, it was completely unpredictable, but Miguel has really elevated himself over the rest of the field in the past couple of weeks. He got 3 wins in succession, if I remember correctly, picked up a podium in a race where he looked pretty off-paced. He still got a podium for it. That is the mark of a champion, that consistency, and it has paid off for him very well. But he does have a pro in the middle of him and Caleb Lehman. That's what I was hinting at before we saw what happened to Mark Kalin. You both want that pro in between you because you want that little bit of a buffer behind you, but you also don't want to fight too hard with Ryan Pucktel if you're Caleb Lehman, because you're literally not fighting with him for position.
Yep, no, exactly, and so that's the dilemma. Now, Sean Campbell has lost 2 seconds to Vincent Trepigny. I'm not sure exactly what's going on here for Sean, if I'm being totally honest, because we expect a little bit more from him, and well, I think now we know exactly why. Bloons TD6 in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen.
Yeah, that doesn't help, and also the BMW doesn't help either, so that's
Hey, we saw the BMW win earlier tonight.
Yeah, but that was a BMW in a fixed setup series. I think this might be the same exact fixed setup, but in an open series.
To be fair, probably. Sean Campbell may not have invested too much time, has to focus on the braking zone for a moment there, and we'll get back to his Bloons in a handful of moments' time. Sean Campbell never fails to give us some entertainment. That is for sure, but he's got Gonzalo Cortez right behind him, and then some separation on No Guinness coming under pressure from Sean Dickinson. Like I mentioned, on the podium last time was Dickinson in that SimCity BMW, and looking backwards from the 312, what can Dickinson do with his teammate Martin Crisp down and out of this race effectively, with SimCity still looking to fight in the team championship?
All Dickinson can do is fight back and get as many points as he can, because Trepigny and Arnaud Genet, both unit sim sports drivers in the top 4, that like 40-point championship lead they have right now, that's going to get even bigger, especially considering that their rivals at RSR by Butt Kicker are currently 2nd and 11th. And yeah, Sean Dickinson is the only SimCity racing driver still alive in the field right now. He didn't get a good enough exit through the final corner, though. He's not even going to be able to think about making a move on Arnaud Genet into turn 1, and he's actually got to think a little bit more about Mitch Lee and Green behind him.
Seem to have lost the second camera, unfortunately, for Arnaud, so we're not going to get to watch from behind him as well, but that was an interesting angle that we had. Of course, do remember this is a 40-minute race rather than 35 like we had with the sprint series earlier, the fixed series earlier tonight. 5 minutes longer, they have a little bit more fuel. How loose is that 312? Because I don't think he was ever in control through the S's there, and he's still struggling with the rear end of that car.
Yeah, you have one moment in the S's, and you're basically struggling for the entire rest of that sector until you get here. You finally get a little bit of respite on the straight. I thought Arnaud Genet was in complete control of this battle about 20 seconds ago, and then he just made one mistake, and that's completely erased all of that gap. See BMW versus Porsche here on the straight. We'll see which one of them is elected to trim out a little bit more. Who has the better straight line speed? It's definitely Dickinson by just a little bit, but it's not going to be good enough to peak to the inside of 12, I don't think. There's other BMWs having trouble at the back of the field. I think that's Brian Force, who just looped it around in the zone in the final corner.
It was the hard point by Delta Sports. Entry goes around. Not the first time today either, unfortunately. Caleb Lehman now passed, by the way, by Ryan Pucktel, at least momentarily, as they continue to duke it out side by side. Pucktel will hold the outside. That will switch back if he can keep the overlap, but runs out of time to do so. You can see behind Fonseca, Bergstrom, the other two of the AM class cars, have Ted Lowendick in the train as well, and then a bit of separation. We jump on board with Ted Lowendick, and I'll be honest, I haven't really given much thought as to why the background has changed.
Arjuna?
Yes?
COTA.
Oh.
It's a really underwhelming payoff, but that's what you come to expect with Ted. It's always a pun. It's never the best pun in the world, but it's still there.
Hey, I enjoyed the candy that we had when we went to Silverstone. That was impressive. He's got to the inside of Bergstrom. Remember, this is not for a point in pro. This will just be for some track position, and Bergstrom will give Lowendick a wide berth and, well, then sweep back around and down the hill they'll plunge, and the RSI by butt kicker machine still trying to get alongside. He'll have to back out of it for the time being, but they're just fighting for track position. They are not fighting for points. Still, this 3-car train, by the way, behind fourth continues to rumble. Trepanier 3.3 seconds clear of Sean Campbell. He is running away at the front of the field.
Yeah, I think Sean Campbell probably wishes that he had some of those like dart guns or some of those. I haven't played balloons since I was about 8 years old, but what do they even have? They had the dart guns. There's like the air cannons. There's a monkey or something. I think Sean probably wishes he had some of them right now, because that gap's not coming down naturally.
At least not yet. You can see at the front a shot. Campbell still under fire from the bright red Porsche 911 of Gonzalo Cortez. With 28 minutes to go. No damage on these cars, of course, fortunately. So we get a good shot of the BMW M4 GT3 on the rumble down in towards the stadium section of the lap. Pucktail again alongside with Lehman, but this time should be able to get the job done. And you can see that Lowendick getting past Bergstrom has split him up from the top two in his class as well, and potentially getting him closer to those pro machines behind. So now Lehman and Fonseca trying to fight a two-horse battle for the lead in M class. See how things shake up. In terms of track map, let's see how the cars have split themselves up, and maybe slightly different to what we had in the first race of the night, Joey, but maybe not surprisingly with Pro and Am, it's splitting up more between the front and the back of the field.
Yeah, especially with a lot of the chaos on lap one. There's a lot of drivers with a little bit of damage who are a little bit further deeper in the field. Christopher Rhines, David Morse, of course. Mark Kalin, unfortunately, in the 62. You can take a screenshot of that track map with the 62 with damage in the background, and that probably tells you how well Mark Kalin's season has gone, unfortunately. But yeah, it's going to be hard to find clean track when everybody thinks about pit strategy in about 7 minutes' time, because there's not going to be much clean track anywhere. They have fanned out all the way back from the leader, Vincent Trepanier, to 53 seconds back and 32nd. There's no clean track anywhere.
You were saying anyway, when we were talking about this with the fixed setup race earlier tonight, that lap traffic, even at a track this long, is a bit of a lie. So once people start coming down to pit lane, you found it difficult to find pockets of time, and that's what we saw with Brandon Six, who tried a bit of an undercut, did not work the way that I think he had really planned for it to do so. Out again of turn 11, they will go. It's now Pucktail that leads this train, 7th overall on back, 5+ seconds adrift of Mitchell, Ian Green, Sean Dickinson, and Arnaud Genet in that battle for 4th. Still Campbell and Cortez, no swap around there. And we wondered if maybe Sully Saad and company were saving fuel. You just wonder if maybe Cortez, Dickinson, and some of the others in these trains are thinking about the long game as well.
I'm not entirely sure. I think Gonzalo Cortez is usually the kind of driver who's full attack at all times. I don't think he's really thinking about strategy behind Sean Campbell. I think the thing that's really setting this battle off, though, is Gonzalo Cortez, that bright red Porsche. It's always very good for us. He's easy to see on the track, but I think Sean Campbell might think that's a balloon behind him, and that's why he's defending so hard.
I'm actually quite curious if how much Sean Campbell is playing his game while also focusing on the lap. So let's see, up into turn 1.
It's there, it's there.
It's there, and he leaves it up there. Down through the gears he'll go, as pit lane has already started to be populated, by the way. Diogo Morales trying to get out of trouble. Now, was he actually trying to play the game out of turn 1?
I mean, it's entirely possible. The stream is a little bit out of sync just because of, you know, the magic of the internet. He's a few corners ahead on the zoom than he is on our screen on the left, but I wouldn't be surprised if he was doing some stuff mid corner. He's kind of given up on the win here. He's kind of given up on the championship. He's just having fun.
Hopefully we get a chance to actually talk to him afterwards and ask why he thinks this race why Trepanier was able to build up such a margin. I did see a couple of inputs on the run into the braking zone. Runs a bit deep, and well, it's not uncommon to see Sean Campbell take both hands off the wheel, but at least he leaves one. Responsible driving in the RSI by butt kicker BMW.
I mean, the left hand, it's barely on the wheel. It's there. He's like, oh, I have to upshift here. I should probably put my hand on the wheel to do that. But other than that, that is, he's definitely relaxed right now. He's not too worried with Gonzalo Cortez putting the pressure on him. I wouldn't be right now if I was him either. I'm in a wide BMW. I've clearly got the pace to keep him behind. I just need to make sure I make no mistakes, and hopefully he doesn't look at his balloons at the wrong time and blow up that gap and let Gonzalo in.
I'm trying to think if I've ever done anything like that as well. He does clobber quite a considerable amount of the anti-cut curb on the inside to Sean Campbell as we near the halfway mark of this race. Now, Diego Morales, like we said, has not come out in clean air. He is right on the back of the thick of the AM-class traffic. Pete Newhook, Jeff Evans, and Blake Ziti, the 3 cars in front of him. As now I think, oh, never mind, I thought Alex Caruso was coming in. He just spun himself around, unfortunately.
He might be well off to bring himself in and minimize his losses here, but let's see what happened to him. In the stadium section here, through the second part of it, yeah, he's already going around in the first part of that. He was turning and braking at the same time, and that rear-engine Porsche, it likes to spin around in times like that, and once you are starting to go around, there's no saving it, so Caruso did a good job of locking down the brakes, and the track was pointing in the right direction for him to recover from that, but he did lose quite a little bit of time there, and you also saw Diego Morales in the background there. You were about to talk about him. Yeah, that's exactly why you don't want to come in early, because he ended up behind all that traffic. Well, and he's in again.
Yeah, he's back in. I'm not sure exactly what's going on here, but whatever it is, it's not good. Is this the championship officially slipping away for Diego Morales? He's already 15 points back, and now as he runs himself into the stall, Diego Morales, 27th overall, 14th in class. That is where he will likely finish this race, barring any unforeseen misfortune. For those in front of him, let's check in with a little battle between Caleb Lehman and Ted Lowendick. Lowendick has been able to get past now Miguel Fonseca as well. Although, in general, the gap between the AM-class podium has started to grow here, Joey, as Lowendick splits them up as he works by them one by one.
I think Miguel might have made a mistake a couple of laps ago. I saw him fall down a little bit. Maybe that was when Diego Morales decided to come into the pits. That might have thrown Miguel off a little bit for a moment, because that is as big as we've ever seen the gap. But Caleb Lehman let Ryan Pucktel by a little bit earlier. He didn't fight him too hard. Unfortunately for him, he's got another pro behind him who he's got to do exactly the same thing with, and then he looks in his mirrors, and Miguel Angel Fonseca is right there with him. So this is why we like Pro-Am racing. In the PRL, they're talking about next season. How many series are we going to have Pro-Am splits? Do we want to have it in the F3 series again, in the MX-5s, and the GT4s? I don't have an opinion, because I don't know. I can go both ways, but the Pro-Am split in this series, though, at least, always gives us a little bit of entertainment.
So we check back in with that battle for 4th position, a 3-way fight for 4th position. Sean Dickinson, Mitchell Ian Green hunting down that 312 as once again up the hill they will go. After this, don't forget, 2 more rounds of the championship. Suzuka 7 days from today, and then it is Rodskogan to round out our championship. And of course, wraps up perfectly, Joey, before those of us inside of America will hunker down and shelter ourselves in place for Thanksgiving.
Indeed, we will. I think Rodskogan comes the week... Does it come the week before Thanksgiving?
It's November
or the week
22nd.
Yes, so it is right before Thanksgiving.
Oh, it is the week of Thanksgiving, yeah.
So yeah, it's perfectly timed. I will be here. I won't be shipped off to Ohio until Wednesday, so we'll be here to crown a champion in Norway, and I will live up to my promise. Jeg snakker ikke norsk, but I will speak more in 2 weeks. That means I don't speak Norwegian. That's the only sentence I can say.
You said it with confidence and enough of a non-accent, if you know what I mean, that I... Very impressed. I would not have assumed that was the only Norwegian you speak, but I have no doubt we will, 2 weeks from today, get a lot more out of you. Still, no move forthcoming. Sean Dickinson not forcing the issue just yet, but this time a bit deep from Genet, and Dickinson doesn't overcommit. So important in these races to know when to fight. Behind Pucktel closing if these drivers were to squabble. Last time by, the lap time's basically equal, though, between Pucktel and Genet, so no real lap time game found there. Question now, by the way, for Alec Bergstrom is how much is he going to have to fight? Because here comes Vincent Sepulveda to try and maybe separate Bergstrom more from Fonseca and Lehman.
Bergstrom has had a troubled past couple of weeks. Like I said before, at Barcelona, he got turned across the nose of a pro driver. I believe it was Dimas Ometo Jr., who is not here tonight, unfortunately, who got Alec Bergstrom turned after he started on pole. And then last week at Oschersleben, I don't actually remember what happened to Alec, but he was leading for the majority of the race. Then once the pit cycle hit, he had a terrible pit stop. He ended up in the midst of the AM field, and somebody else Blake Ziti came through and ended up winning that race. But he's got another chance this week. Hopefully this is the week he finally turns things around, and he's doing a good job in third right now, but we still have a pit cycle to await.
Surprised we haven't seen exactly what happened with Diego Morales, by the way. That second trip down pit lane was actually quite short, so let's see if we can get word on exactly why he had to make that repeat trip back down to get some additional service. I'll be honest, I'm a little bit shocked that this race is as calm as it is, Joey. I was expecting a lot more from the Circuit of the Americas on board with Blake Ziti as he tries to hunt down Colin McKenzie.
It's definitely not over. We just got to look in some different places for a little bit more action. Blake Ziti won last week, and this shows you the unpredictability of the AM Championship is still there. Miguel Angel Fonseca has kind of taken control. Blake Ziti has absolutely not taken control there. Blake Ziti just opened the door for Colin McKenzie to take that one back far too late in the breaks into turn 11. He's going to have to try that one again into turn 12. But yeah, Blake Ziti won last week at Oschersleben, and now he's fighting for 7th or 6th and 7th in class right now. So everything can change week by week in this class.
Unlike what it was like, though, with the fixed series, the drivers do have a bit of weight of expectation and the onus on them to get the setup dialed in. Blake Ziti got very close to the bumper of Colin McKenzie there, almost turning him around in that stadium complex. A close fight on track, and behind them you can see the squabble as Martin Chris tries to fight his way back forward alongside with Pete Newhook as they will carve through the triple right-hander, and around the outside Martin Chris will get it done.
Very well done around the outside there. You don't see that very often. Peter Newhook doesn't look too surprised by that. I think he was probably thinking, you know what, Martin Chris probably is quicker than me. I don't need to fight this too hard. And wow, around the outside. He is ahead now, and now Jeff Evans gets to look in the rearview mirror and think about when Martin Chris was going to go around the outside of him in a couple of corners' time.
I think that's the case for a few of the AM drivers at this point right now. We check in with Vincent Sepulveda, who's been unable to get past Bergstrom, and now Alex Caruso, after his moment earlier on, has closed the gap in the battle for what is 9th in the pro category between the 248 and the 89, as your race leader sees the gap grow of almost over 10 full seconds. Vincent Treppier might want us to talk a little bit more about him, but when you dominate this much, there's not much to say.
Just back off, Vincent. Just park it on the track for 10 seconds. Get behind Campbell and Cortez, and let's make this a three-way battle for the win. Why the heck not?
I mean, it's a two-way fight for second right now. Cortez up and under. Now is Campbell going to have to stop playing his games to start focusing on the games on track, because Cortez is increasingly trying to shape him up for a move.
Cortez tried to go for the ideal switchback there. Didn't work for him. Through the final corner of the stadium section, another good place for a switchback. He's going to get to the outside. Campbell's going to defend the outside. He was just barely clear over the nose, so he was able to get an optimal line coming into this triple apex over the top of the hill. He will hang on, but it's pretty impressive defense. But Gonzalo Cortez eventually is going to get sick of running behind Sean Campbell and maybe take him by surprise and send something into turn 1.
How's the run out of the final corner this time around? In the draft and trying to go back and forth is Cortez. Don't think he will think about it this time. Indeed, saving some fuel and releasing the pressure up into the corner. Lowendick, by the way, has gotten in front of Caleb Lehman. However, crucially, Lehman well and truly still in front of all of those. Sepulveda becomes, I think, the first to blink in terms of a strategy call. Now we'll see where it cycles the 248 out.
If I remember correctly, it was about 25 minutes until we had the last pit stops in the fixed series, so understandably, we're seeing a similar thing here. It's been about 25 minutes since the start of this race, and Vicente Sepulveda, the first driver of the pros to come in other than Diego Morales. It looks like Darren Rutherford and Eric Dubé have also come in for legit stops in the AM class, and Nathan Deering as well. But other than that, everybody's still just trying to extend this for as long as possible. But I say again, there can't be that much more fuel in those tanks. It's got to be only 1 or 2 more laps, because you're not going to make it a full 30 minutes on these tanks with the fuel capacity.
Yeah, I think we are definitely getting to that point. Looking rearwards from Genet as they run out of the final corner. Takes a look over to his left-hand side. Not exactly sure what is catching his attention, but despite the pressure, he's done a good job of not really making too many mistakes. You can see different lines being taken across the trio of cars. Mitchell Ian Green at the back, Sean Dickinson in the middle of that Porsche sandwich, but not be shocked if see some drivers try the undercut, maybe others, like Ian Green, try the overcut. So many options in terms of strategy. Even though, yes, like you pointed out earlier tonight, Joey, it is a long lap. If you're saving intentionally from the start, there are a lot of options still open to you.
And when you're in a train like this, where it is difficult to pass, you are exactly right. That's what you need to think about early on in the race. Do I want to be 100% aggressive on track right now, or do I want to start thinking about strategy early and reaping the rewards once the pit cycle kicks around? But all 3 of these guys still think they can go a couple extra laps, maybe 1 or 2 extra laps. They don't think there's any reason to come in right now, and I can't really blame them, because where they are on track, about 18 seconds behind the lead, they would end up coming out about 50 seconds or so behind the lead, and that's right behind Caven Norris, Peter Newhook, Jeff Evans, so a lot of traffic back there. So I guess it's understandable these guys are going to keep staying out, but some of the drivers further back who will find clean track at the back of the field, like Brett Thurman, they are starting to come in.
Yeah, Thurman has been joined by Evans and Newhook, so maybe it starts to open the question for the pro drivers with more of the AMs thinking about it as well. Of course, that BMW M4 GT3 debuted here in the sim before it was homologated as a real car. iRacing and BMW working hand in hand over the development process, so that once the homologation was finished in short order, Bruno Spengler, the BMW works driver working with the team at iRacing, signed off on the final update to bring the car to production specification. And well, BMW repeating their tricks in 2022 in conjunction with longtime supporters of iRacing at Dallara. BMW are bringing their LMDH to iRacing, and it will be here and available in the upcoming months. It's going to be an exciting time for prototype fans around the world, Joey, as we welcome the GTP evolution to the iRacing platform.
Will it just be the BMW? Will it be the Porsche as well? That's a question that remains to be answered, but even if it is just the BMW, you can't even say just the BMW, because it is a top-class prototype on iRacing for the first time since the LMP1 a few years ago. It'll be great to have that car in the service, and in the PRL, wherever on iRacing, it's going to provide some very interesting racing, and I think everybody's excited to drive that thing.
Yeah. The BMW does look very, very interesting. Now, here we go. Sean Dickinson as well as Arnaud Genet into pit lane, along with Cortez and Trepanier. Campbell stays out. Mitchell Ian Green stays out. And I am a little bit surprised, to be honest, that Sean Campbell is one of those staying out, because he was the one that was towing Gonzalo Cortez around.
I do wonder, though, if that was Sean just kind of playing with Gonzalo a little bit, just doing Sean Campbell things and maybe saving a little bit of extra fuel, but I don't know. That guy's a mystery wrapped in a riddle, wrapped in an enigma, so you can never really predict what he's going to do. His teammate Ted Lowendick has gone out an extra lap as well, as has Pucktel, as has Mitchell Ian Green as well. So it's not like he's doing superhuman things, but clearly Vincent Trepanier thought, it's been long enough, it's finally time to come in.
So now Caleb Lehman rolls in the AM class lead with Fonseca and Bergstrom stacked up behind in line. Pit stop times relatively even up and down the board. Bergstrom taking a second and a half shorter in terms of fill time to try and close the advantage to the leaders in class in front of him. Final 10 minutes to go of this race, about 5 laps to go. There is Campbell, your race leader, yet to pit, along with Mitchell Ian Green in front of Vincent Trepanier, Pucktel and Lowendick, along with Caven Norris and Nick McLaughlin, the others who have yet to stop in what is not mandatory pit stops in terms of the regulations, but because of the fuel restrictions, all but mandatory at most tracks that we will visit. It's Campbell versus Cortez, and Cortez, crucially, has come out in relatively clean air.
There's about 7 seconds between him and Ted Lowendick, so he gets to run qualifying lap times right now, and Sean Campbell might have to save a little bit extra fuel. He might be a little bit on the limit coming into the pits this time around, and that might be what switches it around for Cortez. Here comes Campbell, a little bit of a late pit entry, but no harm, no foul. Not going to get an unsafe pit entry for that. I'm going to get an unsafe exit of the words out of my mouth, and Campbell's in. Mitchell and Green should be in. Pucktel should be in as well.
Yeah, I think this is definitely going to be the limit as Trepanier will retake the race lead. Still waiting for Cortez to run through the final corner. Early turn in for him and aggressive. Sean Campbell in the box and taking his service. Gonzalo Cortez took 9.1 seconds of service. Sean Campbell took 8.1, and it will be enough for him to get back out to the front in this battle for second. The margin between the two cars will be 1.6. Let's see what Cortez still has in the tank.
See if he has 1.8 seconds of pace in the tank. I'm not entirely sure if he does. I think Sean Campbell's probably very, very happy about this gap right now, especially now that the pit cycle's over. He knows he has enough fuel in the tank. He knows he can push all the way to the end, and he knows that with 2 seconds in the arrears there, he can probably pull up the balloons a couple more times.
Yeah, I have a feeling he will be very much enjoying the balloons. Mitchell Ian Green jumps in front of Genet and in front of Dickinson by virtue of his overcut. And now we'll see how important track position is going to be as Ian Green hits the front of this battle pack for the very first time.
Arnaud on offense here instead of defense for basically the first time in this race. So this should be interesting to see here through turn 11. Solid exit for Arnaud, but similarly to in the GT3 fixed race, if you're half a second behind a driver coming onto this back straight, that's not going to be close enough to take full advantage of the draft and be able to dive it to the inside in turn 12. You need to be within 3 or 2/10, frankly, to really be in with a shot of sending it to the inside. Genet's going to peek it to the inside, but that door was not truly opened by Mitchell Ian Green, and he knew it. He knew he was going to be able to take his line there, but Genet thought about it. He gave us a little bit of an illusion there.
I think that was one of those moves where it's like, I'll show my nose. We'll see how it goes. He'll show it again, and this time Ian Green gives him just enough room. Will run almost off the track, but Genet's not here to hang about. He's here to work his way forward.
His offense has been very, very good here so far in the first half of this lap, or the first 3/4 of this lap. Through the second to last corner, though, he tried to get to the inside a little bit more than Mitchell did to try and get a little bit better of a run, and he got bitten there. He got bitten by the curb on the inside, and that got him just a little bit of oversteer, and now he's got even more work to do behind Sean Dickinson.
And it shows that sometimes you just push too hard and it bites you, because I think that's ultimately what happened, Joey. He was pushing so hard that he ran out of, I don't want to say talent, but ran out of grip at some point as well. And now we have to see just how cooked those tires are on the Porsche, how much he was abusing them in the early stages of this run. Check in with the AM Class Championship leader in the battle for the AM Class lead. 1.4 splits Lehman from Fonseca. And it's an Audi that is trying to chase down, I believe, the Porsche in front. Do like the LEDs that we look on board with when it comes to Miguel Angel Fonseca. However, we should point out that he does miss the googly eyes that we have from Caleb Lehman.
Yeah, googly eyes do provide about 2 extra tenths per lap. That's a little known fact. I am disappointed, though, in the background, though. He used to have a table back there. He used to have some Legos back there, but I don't know if... Maybe he thought those were proprietary. He didn't want to get a race spot suit, so he took those down for us. But this would be Caleb Lehman's first win in the PRL. That's what's truly important, not the googly eyes. There's been quite a few first-time winners in the GT3 Sprint Series this season, and Caleb Lehman would join an esteemed list of drivers like Miguel Angel Fonseca and a few others who I need to remember at this point. Rob Campbell got his first GT3 win. Of course, Blake Ziti got his first wins.
See, you talk about these wins. Sean Campbell has enough of them that he's content to play balloons in that second place battle. You'll notice, though, that if he is playing balloons, it's not really playing for him right now. The gap to Cortez has come down, not to a second just yet. However, More and more, Cortez growing larger in that rear view mirror of the BMW.
He definitely has the speed right now. He showed us that he had the speed fighting with Sean before. I was wondering, though, is that because Sean is hanging back a little bit here? Is that because Sean isn't 100% focused right now? I think it might just be because Gonzalo Cortez in the Porsche that is actually set up to his liking is probably quite a bit quicker than Sean Campbell in this big fat BMW that isn't working out very well for him. This battle isn't over, and Sean Campbell still looking in the mirrors. He's looking at the big red balloon, and he's hoping that it's not 09, red balloon go by. Da-na-na-na-na-na. We're going insane at the end of here.
I know. I was just trying to figure out, though, exactly what is happening with Sean Campbell when it comes to the car selection. So we'll hopefully get some clarification on that one heading into next weekend and exactly what this means in the championship and exactly what it means when it comes to what Sean Campbell is doing in terms of preparation, because I think that is probably a question that we would like to get an answer to as well. There's a look at Campbell as he winds again out of turn 11 on the power once more. He's not playing his game this time. I'm disappointed. There we go.
I'm always curious about that mysterious magenta curtain on the right of Sean Campbell's room here. It looks like it's like a theater curtain. He's playing behind a stage or something.
Yeah, no, you're right. I do like the various angles that we do get from Sean Campbell. We've had the foot cam in the past. He's given us those weird faces as he's come across the line before as well. Although I think those faces should henceforth be banned on RaceSpotTV if you are to ask my personal opinion. Diego Morales is up into 10th. Okay, so maybe I was misunderstanding something that happened to him. He's alongside Alex Caruso now, and, well, probably not in contention to catch Vincent Sepulveda, but Morales at one point I thought was guaranteed to finish down in 14th position. Has done a good job to fight his way forward.
But think about the delta of that that extra run through pit lane, those 29 extra seconds that he took. Subtract those from his time right now, and he would be in P4 right now, far closer to Vincent Trepanier. So that is what has what's hurt him. I don't know. I don't think we'll have time to talk to Diego Morales tonight, but if he does decide to show up, I hope we learn what happened there, because he did do 2 runs through pit lane with 2 stops, and I have no idea why. I don't know if he put tires on in the first stop and forgot to check fuel or something accidentally, but that's weird.
Through the S's comes your race leader for what will be the penultimate time as he gets ready to start lap 20 of this race. Been a very comfortable drive, and again, we've talked about the jeopardy that championship leaders will always still have with drop rounds not being counted for that final championship finale. However, Vincent Trepanier is looking as though he will extend that gap at the front of the field, potentially over 30 points heading into the penultimate round of the season, 7 days from today.
Going to get 1 lap at the line here, and Vincent, I hope you like COTA, because you're about to get a perfect COTA track day lap with nobody around you, and you can just do whatever you want. You can pull up balloons. You got 15 seconds to screw with, so you might as well do whatever you want. But Gonzalo Cortez has closed this gap down. This is going to be a fight to the end, and he's got 1 more lap to figure out how to actually get by Sean Campbell, which he wasn't able to do in the previous 30 or 40 minutes of this race.
Where is this opportunity going to come is the question. Now, is Sean Campbell going to focus a little bit more? I think that is also a pertinent question. Inside line chosen for Cortez, but that was always a little bit over-optimistic. You don't want to go for it too early if you are the number 09. You've got to wait for the right opportunity, but time is indeed winding down as they get set to start the final lap of the race here at the Circuit of the Americas as they fight for second, 16 seconds behind your race leader.
I have a feeling that Gonzalo's going to go for it in turn 1 here. I hope he does. He knows there's 8 seconds left on the clock. This is the final lap. You don't get many more opportunities at this. He's going to be very, very late in the brakes into turn 1. He's going to peek to the inside, but Campbell blocked that off. Gonzalo actually had to back off a little bit, kill his momentum coming down the hill here. So he's going to have to wait again for the best passing opportunity on the track at turn 12. He definitely has the pace to do this. It's just about timing it perfectly, and it's about just sending it very, very aggressively to the inside, because I have a feeling that Sean Campbell won't do anything especially aggressive to defend from it.
Probably not. Here, by the way, is Fonseca, championship leader in AM, and now with 1 lap to go to try and close to the Porsche in front. How aggressive will he go? Not exactly sure we'll see much going on. Here's Martin Chris sliding in front of Brett Thurman in the SRT Esports number 69 machine up through turn 1. All these drivers starting what will be their final lap of this race. Meanwhile, Vincent Trepanier is out of turn 12 and getting ready to head into the final sector of the lap. I mean, what a run of momentum that he's had, regardless of the issues that Sean Campbell has had, Joey. Trepanier is the fastest man in the series right now.
And it's not like Sean Campbell was trouncing the field in those weeks when he was in the Porsche. Trepanier was keeping him company every single week. He was always on the back of Sean. He was never quite able to actually make the move, but he was within touching distance every single week, and he is absolutely the dominant force in this championship right now.
Came into this one with a 15-point advantage, but Vincent Trepanier will walk away with that margin growing even bigger. He's got just 2 races left to go in this championship. It's back-to-back wins for Vincent Trepanier in the Precision Racing League GT3 Sprint Series, conquering at the Lone Star State and at the Circuit of the Americas. It will be a long wait to see if Sean Campbell and Gonzalo Cortez can battle to the line. Cortez will light up the rear tires. He will settle for 3rd. At the very least, he will be able to claim that he tried all the way to the very end of this race. But a dominant drive at the front of the field.
I hope we get to see what happened to Gonzalo Cortez through the final corner there, because if he did what I thought he did and sent it to the inside of Sean in a last-ditch effort, I will have to give him a very big round of applause. But it doesn't look like he did that. It looks like he just got a little bit early on the throttle. It's a little bit too hard in the throttle through the final corner, trying to get every last 10th out of it. It was a lazy spin, but he had time to waste. He's still going to get a podium out of it.
Yep, I think that's one of those, well, oopsie, but it didn't matter kind of a mistakes. 35 took to the green flag, 33 will come across the line at the end of this one, but I mean, Joey, another race where passing was at a premium and you really had to work for it, and well, Vincent Trepanier untroubled up front, but there was still plenty of tension through the rest of the field.
And Caleb Lehman did bring it home. He held off Miguel Angel Fonseca, and Caleb Lehman is a PRL winner for the first time. So welcome to the PRL Winners Club, Caleb Lehman. And also Vincent Trepanier, that was his 13th win tonight. That ties him with Sean Campbell in overall PRL wins. So, Sean, you might have to start fighting back. You might have to prevent him from beating his record.
Sean might actually have to stop paying attention is what we're saying here.
Yes.
They are almost all across the line. We will give them a couple more moments before we grab you a look at your race results, and hopefully after that the chance to chat with some of these drivers before we wrap things up for another doubleheader of Tuesday night GT3 action. Of course, the PRL racing will continue tomorrow as the Precision Racing League Truck Series continues its run through 2022. But with that said, 20 laps later, here's a look at those race results. It's Trepanier 17.5 seconds clear of Sean Campbell, who switches over to the BMW for the first time after a handful of rounds in the McLaren. Cortez spins out of the final corner, but still across the line in 3rd on the podium. Mitchell Ian Green holds on to 4th at the very end of the day in front of Dickinson and in front of Genet with Puctel and Lowendick, the rest of the pros inside the top 10. Caleb Lehman grabs win number 1. He's down in 9th position in front of Fonseca by 1.5 seconds, with Vincent Sepulveda splitting Alec Bergstrom from the rest of the AM class podium. Diego Morales, Alex Caruso, and Martin Crisp. Some more of your pro class competitors with Brett Thurman, Turner Schroll, Colin McKenzie, Blake Ziti, and then Nathan Deering, all within 63 seconds of your race leader. Difficult day for Caven Norris, to say the very least. He's down in 21st with Jeff Evans, Rob Campbell, Pete Newhook, Darren Rutherford, Sean Carmody, Marc-Andre Deschardins, David Van Roy, Christopher Rhines, and Nick McLaughlin rounding out the top 30. Morse, Kalen, Dubé, Vorse, Swaby, and Patrick bookend the 36 that are classified at the very end of the day. Sean Campbell, by the way, wants us to know it was a riveting game of balloons. He nearly lost at round 53. He did not have enough camo detection. We won't wait much longer though. We will head down to Victory Lane, and Joey Tebbin is standing by with Vincent Trepanier.
Well, Vincent, you've done it again, and it seemed like it was a pretty lonely day out there for you. How was your COTA track day tonight?
It was very fun, but I don't hope to win this race with this gap of I think it was 15 seconds, I think. So yep.
17 and a half coming to the line. So what were you thinking in those past couple of laps with that big of a gap? Were you getting a little bit bored? Were you thinking maybe I could play a couple of games right about now? What was going through your head?
Can you just repeat, please? Because I'm not good in English. Just repeat. Or can you slide Arnaud Genet with us?
Yeah, sure. I can drag Arnaud up here.
Sorry.
So Arnaud, I'll ask you actually. Vincent had a 17 and a half second gap there at the end of the race. Were you trying to keep him amused at the end of the race?
Well, actually, I was. My hands were pretty full with battling with Mitchell and Dickinson. So yeah, I was muted for most of the race. But yeah, I looked at the relative, and I couldn't see Vincent. Because driving skills this season are so impressive, to be honest. And yeah, he's trying to coach us, but yeah, can't make it work so far.
Pretty good day for Unit Sim Sports today. Vincent Trepanier, P1, Arnaud Genet, P6. Congrats, guys, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys.
That was Arnaud Genet and Vincent Trepanier, and as quickly as they go away, we got Caleb Lehman in here. Caleb, you're a PRL winner for the first time. How does that feel?
It feels really good. I've had kind of a really terrible season, got off to a really bad start. I felt I had the pace, but I don't think I've scored any points this season at all. And it just kind of all came together this week, so it feels really good.
Why do you think it did all come together this week? Because you've had pace this season, but COTA seemed to really click with you. Do you like this track?
Usually I don't like this track, but for some reason with the Porsche, it just kind of all came together. I took a few weeks away, went on vacation. I think I cleared my mind, and just all kind of came together tonight.
How many tenths per lap do the googly eyes add?
I think they probably distract too much. I should probably take them off, but they're a lot of fun.
No, you shouldn't. No, you shouldn't. Congrats on your win tonight, Caleb, and we'll see you next week.
All right, thanks a lot, guys.
Caleb Lehman, your AM winner, but we've got second place driver in the race, Sean Campbell. But did you win in balloons?
I did. Barely.
I haven't played that game since I was about 8 years old, so you're gonna have to talk to me like I'm grandpa here. How many levels did you get through?
60. I play it on normal.
60 levels.
Yeah, I had to. I came out of the pit lane. I had to put it on double speed because I was only on round 30.
And why were you in the BMW tonight? You didn't tell us. It was a surprise. Arjuna noticed on your Zoom. He was like, "That's not the McLaren dash or the Porsche dash." Why were you in the BMW?
I don't know. I just felt like driving the BMW tonight.
Just for the heck of it?
I don't know. Sure.
Well, then, that pretty much means the championship is over with you and Vincent. But
I mean,
you gonna switch to another car next week at Suzuka?
Yeah, probably. I'll probably go back to the Porsche. I think the championship was kind of over when I got in the McLaren. But it was fun. You know, it was good driving that car after a year of being off of it. It was great.
All right, well, congrats on P2. Congrats on 60 levels of balloons. I have to imagine it'll be tougher at Suzuka next week when you're constantly turning.
Maybe, yeah.
That was Con Shamble, P2, and we'll talk to one more driver, Miguel Angel Fonseca, also P2 and AM. Miguel, you've been absolutely in control of this championship lately, and again, a solid podium.
Yeah, it was a fun race, really tough track, avoiding the off-tracks, but yeah.
How many off-tracks did you have by the end of the session?
At the end, I had 11.
Oh, so you were playing with the limits there. So were you driving a little bit off in the last couple of laps, just trying to stay within the limits?
Actually, at the beginning of the race, I was trying to stay on the limits, building some room for pushing to the end. But anyway, I didn't had enough to catch Caleb.
2 more weeks though, Suzuka and Rudskogen to finish it out. You're gonna have a pretty solid championship lead after that. Are you starting to feel confident for the next 2 weeks and taking the SAM championship?
I like Suzuka. The other track I haven't driven it, but I think if I continue like this, avoiding mistakes and stuff, I think there's a really good chance.
All right, congrats on P2 again tonight, and we'll see you next week as well.
Thanks, guys.
Miguel Angel Fonseca, P2 Arjuna. They all sold it for you. Suzuka's coming up next week. Rudskogen after that. That's going to be a wild end of this season.
It is going to be a wild end indeed. Let's again remind you, November 15th, 9:20 p.m. Eastern, your GT3 Sprint Series will go racing once more, but of course an hour before, join us for the GT3 Fixed, your GT3 double header. A great day of racing. I mean, the Lone Star State does never disappoint, but I mean, Joey, this season is coming to an end, and it's coming to an end soon.
Vincent Trepanier has one hand on the trophy already. I think we can probably say that much, but we also can't completely write off the Pro Championship, because Vincent could run into trouble in the final race with Diego Morales within touching distance. Miguel Angel Fonseca as well looks really good in the AM Championship, but things could also go wrong for him. And of course, Michael Terrafino in the Fixed Series. That's 3 drivers who have strong championship leads, but when you can't drop that last week, you're never comfortable in the championship lead.
You will never be comfortable indeed. However, this Tuesday night doubleheader from the Circuit of the Americas comes to an end, and after a handful of rounds at close quarters racetracks, it was nice to go somewhere a little bit more wide and open. However, it was still plenty of chaos on the opening laps. It was still plenty of drama all the way through this race. Don't forget, plenty more Precision Racing League action over the course of the week, so stay tuned on RaceSpotTV as well as on the VCO Esports Twitch channel to keep up to date within the latest news of the Precision Racing League. Joey and myself will be back a week from today in the land of the rising sun, and then in 14 days' time, a champion will be crowned in both our series as we wrap up this 2022 Season 4. On behalf of the entire team at RaceSpotTV, for Joey Tebben and for myself, Arjuna Kenkipati, thank you for your company on this Tuesday evening. We'll see you next time out on RaceSpotTV, but congratulations goes not just to our first-time winners, but to the championship leaders, Vincent Trepanier, and to Michael Terrafino and Caleb Leemer, all winners here at the Circuit of the Americas.